Chapter 875. Ingwuji shook his head. It's fine. However, don't act rashly next time. This time, he had only caused some changes, and there was no danger. However, he could not say for sure next time. It was very rash to act rashly before he understood something. However, it was this cultivator's actions that allowed Ingwuji to see some clues. He said, "When you joined the sect, you should have tested your talent. What was the result?" The cultivator was slightly ashamed. "He's an average talent, and he has 43 leaves." Ingwuji turned to look at Lu Yi. "Brother Nyo." Lu Yi bowed. The flower shadows that appeared just now were exactly 43. "So it's true." Ingwuji understood. "Looks like it's true." The two of them spoke one after another as if they had reached some conclusion. The group of Cloud River tier cultivators were somewhat thoughtful and confused. A female cultivator said, "Lord Ing, you mean to say that this stone platform is used to test one's talent?" "Perhaps it is, and perhaps it isn't, but it is indeed used to test one's talent. It has the ability to test one's innate talent." Ingwuji took in a deep breath. This item must have existed for a very long time. It's very likely that it was created before this era. The reason for this judgment was that the methods used by the major sects to test the talent of their disciples were different from what was shown on this stone platform. Lu Yi had also tested his talent in the Evil Moon Valley. During the whole process, he only needed to sit in a magic array and let the cultivator who tested his talent guide his spiritual power to test him. This was still fresh in his memory. Since the beginning of this era, the method that the cultivators of the 9 states used to test their talent was the same as what Lu Yi had experienced. It might have been improved, but the general method would not change. The stone platform before him was clearly different from the method that the 9 states used to test their talent. "Who wants to try?" Ingwuji said. The female cultivator who had spoken earlier said, "I'll try." As she said this, she channeled her spiritual power into the stone platform beneath her. The veins lit up and the formation was activated. The flower shadows at the edge of the stone platform appeared again. There were 53 of them. The female cultivator said, "It really is used to test one's talent. The number 53 is the same as my talent. If that was the case, then this stone platform would not be of much use. However, its material was strange. If he could find a way to bring it back and sell it to the Tianji treasury, he might be able to make a decent profit." After confirming that there wasn't any danger, the cultivators' playful hearts were aroused. One smoke after another, they tried it out, and the results they obtained all confirmed their respective talent. "Lord Ing, why don't you give it a try?" a female cultivator asked, curious about Ingwuji's talent. As the core disciple of this generation of Sun Luo Temple, previously, he had achieved good results in the Cloud River battle, so Ingwuji's talent was naturally excellent. He intended to show off his prowess in front of these Cloud River tier cultivators, so he did not refuse and said, "Then let's give it a try." His spirit energy was activated and the array hummed. Cries of surprise rang out. Everyone looked up and saw that the flower shadows around the stone platform were almost connected together. There were a total of 62 flowers. A cultivator's talent was 64, and if one wanted to become a core disciple of the various great sects, one's talent had to be at least 60 leaves. Ingwuji's talent of 62 leaves was top-notch even in the whole 9 states. Feeling the envious and worshipful gazes around him, Ingwuji said, "Although talent is important in the cultivation of cultivators, talent cannot determine the limit of one's cultivation. You all have to remember that your own hard work is the most important. If someone relies on his talent and does not improve, in the end, he will not achieve much. On the other hand, even if his talent is insufficient, the heavens reward the diligent, and there will be a way for those with a will to succeed." His lecture made the many Cloud River tier cultivators nod, indicating that they had understood. However, as he spoke, he could not help but laugh. A female cultivator said sweetly, Lord Ing, what interesting thing have you thought of? I thought of a person. Lu Yi looked up at him, and his eyes narrowed slightly. Tu Ing Wuji was completely unaware, and did not need anyone to ask. He continued, I'm sure you all are familiar with Lu Ye of the Jade Blood sect. They were all at the Cloud River tier, and had fought in the Cloud River battlefield. Who had not heard of Lu Ye's name? Instantly, their expressions became serious. Actually, his real name was Lu Yi, but for some reason, he was called Lu Ye. Now that he has become famous, he is called this. Do you know why he is called Lu Ye? I have not heard of this. I heard that when his talent was tested, he only received the evaluation of Ye, which just so happened to match his name, so some people jokingly called him Lu Ye. In the end, the news spread just like that. Ye's talent, ha ha, don't you think it's funny? As he laughed, Ing Wuji suddenly shuddered and turned to look in Lu Ye's direction. For some reason, he felt that this person wanted to kill him. He did not seem to have offended this brother Nyo. What was up with this person? His expression became serious, and he changed the topic. I am not telling you all this for you to laugh at his talent. Lu Ye is so talented, and he has achieved so much. Now, on the Cloud River battlefield, who does not know his name? Thus, for cultivators, talent is important, but it is not the most important thing. But, my lord, with Lu Ye's talent, his cultivation efficiency must be extremely low. How can Lu Ye's cultivation speed be so fast? Is this fake news purposely released by the Grand Heaven Alliance? Perhaps he has more than Ye's talent, but his talent is definitely not too high. As for the fake news, a Cloud River Realm cultivator is no different from a lake. The Grand Heaven Alliance is so big, why would they care about a single Cloud River Realm cultivator? Why would the cultivators release fake news? As for why he can cultivate so fast, he must have obtained many fortuitous encounters. I was fortunate enough to work with him for a period of time. Although we are on different sides, I have to say that this person has some tricks up his sleeve. Some cultivators were not convinced. If he relies on fortuitous encounters alone, he won't be able to go far. Naturally, someone else agreed and flattered Ing Wuji. Lord Ying's talent is unparalleled. Your future achievements will definitely be above Lu Ye's. I hope so. Ing Wuji turned to look at Lu Yi. Brother Nyo, do you want to try? Lu Yi wanted to refuse. There was no point in testing his talent. He had the little spirit-gathering funnel. His talent did not matter much to him. However, on second thought, ever since he obtained the Soaring Dragon Realm's broken origin, his talent seemed to have undergone some earth-shattering changes. In the past, he could not absorb the heaven and earth spirit chi at all. It was as though there was a barrier in his body that prevented the heaven and earth spirit chi from entering his body. Only the little spirit-gathering funnel could break through this barrier. However, now, even if he did not construct the little spirit-gathering funnel, Lu Yi could still cultivate like an ordinary cultivator. It was just that he rarely did so. After all, in terms of efficiency, his original technique was more impressive. He could test his talent to see how good it was. With that thought in mind, he channeled his spiritual power into the stone platform beneath him. The veins swiftly lit up, and the great formation was activated. The flower patterns around the stone platform shone brightly. Above each pattern, the shadow of a flower appeared in the air. In an instant, the flower shadows connected head to tail and covered the entire area around the stone platform. The others watched with their mouths agape. Ing Wuji's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Lu Yi was slightly surprised as well. He knew that his talent was not bad, but he did not expect it to be this good. 64 flower shadows appeared, 2 more than Ing Wuji. This meant that Lu Yi had a 64-leaf talent. Gifted by the heavens, this was a true gifted by the heavens. In fact, it could be said that his talent was more than 64-leaf, because that was the limit of what this place could test. Brother Nyo, are you really a rogue cultivator? Ingwuji finally came to his senses. Was there such a rogue cultivator in the world? Originally, Ingwuji did not pay much attention to Lu Ye's claim that he was a rogue cultivator who did not belong to any sect or sect. Rogue cultivators generally did not have high talents because if they had good talent, they would have joined a large sect long ago. However, he now realized that he had misjudged Lu Yi. With a 64-leaf talent, he could join any of the top sects in the 9 states. How could such a person be a rogue cultivator? Ingwuji could not figure it out. Lu Yi had already retracted his spiritual power. When others retracted their spiritual power, the flower shadows would disappear. However, when he retracted his spiritual power, the flower shadows remained and shone brighter and brighter. This sudden change caused everyone to be on guard. They did not know what was going on. Just as everyone was feeling bewildered, the 64 flower shadows suddenly floated towards the center of the stone platform. Above the flower shadows, the petals fluttered and danced, quickly fusing together to form an even larger flower shadow. The surrounding flame energy was wildly devoured by the stone platform, and a wild gust of wind appeared. The originally scorching hot environment became slightly cooler. Under everyone's gaze, the flower shadow at the center of the stone platform seemed to have absorbed enough energy and slowly bloomed like a real flower bud. Cracking sounds could be heard. When the flower shadow had completely bloomed, a cratered entrance had appeared at the center of the stone platform. The entrance was at the center of the flower. At this moment, the changes on the stone platform finally stopped, and the massive flower shadow slowly disappeared. The entire place fell silent. Everyone stared at the entrance that had suddenly appeared. They had not expected such a change. Based on the current situation, this stone platform was not only used to test one's talent but also a hidden door that led underground. As for what was below, no one knew. If they wanted to open this door, they would have to find a way to activate the 64 flower shadows. Relying on one's talent alone should not be the only method. The ancient person who had created this stone platform must have other method. This time, Lu Yi must have used this method to open the hidden door of the stone platform by chance. Now that the door had appeared, and the path ahead was unknown, everyone began to think. In the 9 states, fortuitous encounters were everywhere. Whether one could encounter it or not depended on one's luck. An ancient stone platform and a door that led to an unknown place. Was there danger or a fortuitous encounter ahead? However, cultivators had always been adventurous. In such a situation, anyone would want to go in and explore. Ingwuji turned to look at Lu Yi. Brother Nyo. Lu Yi nodded slightly. Ingwuji understood tacitly. Chapter 876. Ingwuji had an indescribable feeling towards this loose cultivator who called himself Nyo Meng. Disregarding everything else, he had a tacit understanding with this person at times. Take this moment as an example. Facing this unknown door, he and Nyo Meng had decided on a plan with just a simple sentence and a glance. There was no need for too much elaboration or anything else. The two of them already understood each other's thoughts. Ingwuji led the way in front while Nyo Meng monitored from behind. Working with such a person was undoubtedly very easy. If Nyo Meng was not here, he might not have the intention to explore further. His main mission was to protect the Cloud River tier cultivators under him as they collected earth fire. He had the responsibility to ensure their safety. The road ahead was unknown, and Ingwuji could not care less about it. The biggest problem was to immediately send a message to Lu Nai and ask him to send other true lake tier cultivators. They would come over to cooperate with him. But with Nyo Meng beside him, there was no need to delay things. His gaze swept across the Cloud River tier cultivators under him, and Ingwuji pointed out half of them. You all follow me down. The rest stay outside to provide support. If there are any abnormalities, immediately send a message back. Yes. Everyone agreed. This time, even the flirtatious female cultivator's expression became extremely serious. Normally, Ing Wuji was easy to approach, and they could talk and laugh with him. But now that he had given an order, they could only follow it. Senior Ing, I'll go in first. An 8th Order Solid Cloud River Realm cultivator volunteered and walked into the dark hole. Move! Ing Wuji pulled him to the side and jumped into the hole on the stone platform. The hole was like the mouth of a beast, swallowing him whole. Follow! A voice came from below. A few Cloud River tier cultivators who were pointed out hurriedly followed Ing Wuji's footsteps and jumped in one by one. Lu Yi walked at the back. After he walked in, there were only a few cultivators left. They all spread out and were vigilant. Below the stone platform was a stone staircase that led downwards. No one knew where it led. The stone staircase was obviously man-made. It was flat and smooth. Even after the erosion of time, it was still as stable as before. There were 7 to 8 people in the group, with the 2 true lake tier cultivators in front and behind, and the Cloud River tier cultivators in the middle. They all tiptoed like cats, and there was no sound as they walked. The passage down wasn't crowded and could accommodate 7 or 8 people walking side by side. The further down they went, the darker it became. However, everyone was considered to have some success in their cultivation, so they channeled enough spirit force into their eyes to observe their surroundings. Ing Wuji, who was leading the way, did not hide himself. He walked and stopped, as if he had discovered something. Lu Yi, who was at the back, soon knew what he had discovered. Passing by the place where he had stopped, Lu Yi could clearly see that there were some strange stone carvings on the stone walls on both sides of the passage. The patterns on the stone carvings were not uniform and appeared to be arbitrary. Some were flowers, some were sabers and spears, and some were human figures and ferocious beasts. From the looks of it, it was something left behind by the workers of ancient times and did not contain any special information. However, the pattern that appeared the most frequently was the sun in the sky. Within this pattern, there were many figures kneeling on the ground and kowtowing. Regardless of the origin of the owner of this place, just from the pattern alone, it seemed to be worshipping the sun in the sky. All the way down, it was unknown how far they had gone. Until a certain moment, there was a sudden cry from the front. Lu Yi, who was walking at the back, couldn't help but quicken his pace. The moment he stepped off the stone steps, Lu Yi couldn't help but fall into a daze. Su Chunran had a giant karst cave. This karst cave was so large that one couldn't see the end of it with a single glance. Deep within the cave, fiery red magma flowed like a river, shining with a brilliant light that clearly imprinted the scene inside the karst cave into everyone's field of vision. What caused everyone to exclaim in surprise was not the vastness of the karst cave, but rather the fact that there was a city-like existence in the cave. Rows upon rows of rough-looking houses of different heights were scattered all over the city. These houses were all carved out of hard stones, and many of them had collapsed due to years of disrepair. Only a few of them were still intact. In this underground karst cave there was actually an ancient city. The city was crisscrossed with the magma flowing through the canals like a moat. Just from the scene in front of them and their previous experience, this city had been uninhabited for many, many years. But what was hard to imagine was, what kind of people would live in such an environment? Even a true lake stage cultivator like Ing Wuji couldn't stay here for long. He had to constantly circulate his spiritual energy to resist the scorching heat of the environment, which consumed a lot of spiritual energy. Suddenly seeing a dilapidated city in such a position was really hard to believe. What's up there? Suddenly, a cultivator looked up. Above everyone's heads was the underground rock wall, but because of the environment it was scorched red. But on the rock wall, every set distance, there were specks of light constantly flickering. Ing Wuji and Lu Yi flew up at the same time and soon returned, each holding a fist-sized irregular crystal in their hands. Fire Spirit Stone. Ing Wuji was stunned. Most of the spirit stones didn't have an attribute, but there were many special environments that could produce spirit stones with special attribute. For example, here, the environment was scorching hot and the fire's spiritual energy was dense and active. Over the years, fire spirit stones could be born. This kind of thing was useless to normal cultivators, but for cultivators like Lu Yi who cultivated fire attribute techniques and had fire attribute spiritual energy, using this spirit stone to cultivate would be much more efficient than using normal spirit stones. Not only that, attribute spirit stones had other uses that normal spirit stones couldn't replace. So in terms of value, attribute spirit stones were much more valuable than normal spirit stones. Under the premise of the same quality and size, one attribute spirit stone could be exchanged for 3 to 5 normal spirit stones. This kind of thing was usually kept as a strategic reserve by the two factions. Lu Yi once tried to find fire spirit stones in the Tianji treasure house, but didn't find a single one. It wasn't that the Tianji treasure house didn't sell it, but when there was stock, it was all snatched up by the cultivators of the two factions. It was the same treatment as the earth core fire. There were fire spirit stones in the rock wall above the city, which meant that there was a complete fire spiritual vein above, or else it wouldn't be able to nurture fire spirit stones. Looking up, there were as many fire spirit stones on the rock wall as there were stars in the sky. There were obviously a lot of them. No one had set foot in this place for thousands of years, so it wasn't strange that there were so many fire spirit stones here. Senior Ing, should we start mining? A cultivator asked, his face flushed with excitement. In the face of such an opportunity, everyone was naturally tempted. If they could mine all the fire spirit stones above, then even if they divided them evenly, everyone would benefit greatly. Ing Wuji thought for a moment, then said, "Since we've encountered it, we naturally can't miss it. Then we'll start now? But be vigilant at all times." Ing Wuji waved his hand. A few cultivators immediately soared into the sky and flew towards the cliff above. "Brother Nyo, what do you plan to do?" Ing Wuji turned to look at Lu Yi. He couldn't help but feel a bit strange. In the face of such wealth, this brother Nyo didn't seem to be very tempted. "I'll look around and see if there's any danger." Ing Wuji finally understood Lu Ye's intentions and said gratefully, "Then I'll have to trouble brother Nyo." Sure enough, he could rely on his own people. It wasn't that brother Nyo wasn't tempted by the fire spirit stones. He was just a bit more cautious. "Don't worry, brother Nyo will get his share," Ing Wuji added. Since Lu Yi was willing to take the risk of exploring the area, he naturally wouldn't be stingy. Everyone was working together now, and although the division of labor was different, when the time came, he couldn't leave out a share of the benefits. Lu Yi nodded and walked towards the city. After walking a few steps, he suddenly seemed to think of something and said, "It's best if they hand over all the fire spirit stones they've mined to you for safekeeping. This way, it'll be convenient for the final tally and avoid any suspicions." During the process of mining, if someone was secretly hiding something, they couldn't possibly check the storage bags of others. Rather than making a fuss and embarrassing everyone, it was better to letting Wu Ji keep all the fire spirit stones and split the profits among everyone. Ing Wu Ji immediately understood Lu Ye's intentions and nodded, saying, "Brother Nyo's considerations are thorough. We'll do as Brother Nyo says." Only then did Lu Yi leave and enter the city. Ing Wu Ji then flew into the air and met up with the Cloud River tier cultivators under his command. He passed down an order and had them hand over all the fire spirit stones they've mined. Regarding this, the Cloud River tier cultivators didn't have much objection. They also understood Ing Wu Ji's intentions. The efficiency of the cultivators was very high. Piece after piece of fire spirit stone was mined, and every time a certain amount was accumulated, they would come to Ing Wu Ji's side to be counted. While this side was bustling with activity, Lu Yi also made a discovery. In a half-collapsed stone house, Lu Yi looked at a stool in front of him with a strange expression. There was no other reason. This stool was actually carved out of fire spirit stones. The workmanship wasn't exquisite, and it was actually very crude. However, it couldn't hide the special quality of its material. The reason why he had taken the initiative to invite Granny to explore this underground city was because this place was unknown. Although no one had visited it for many years, who knew if there really were some hidden dangers? It wouldn't be too late to think about the benefits after exploring it thoroughly. There were many thorns on the path of cultivation, so it was always right to be a little more careful. However, he hadn't thought that a casual stroll would result in such a harvest. Who exactly had lived in this city in the past? To actually use such a good thing as a stool, weren't they afraid of burning their butts? Or could it be that the people who had lived in this city all cultivated fire element cultivation technique? This was a remnant of a long time ago. If there weren't any special clues now, there was no way to prove anything. Lu Yi stepped forward and put away the stool. He looked around again, and only left after confirming that there were no other good things. Chapter 877. Occasionally, he would find something when he searched the stone houses. He didn't know what kind of people used to live here, but they seemed to have a habit of using fire spirit stones to make furniture. Chairs, tables, and other things that Lu Yi didn't know the purpose of were all carved out of fire spirit stones. No one had cared about this place for thousands of years, and the fire spirit energy here was extremely rich and active, causing these things to be of high purity and quality. Wuji and the others were mining the fire spirit stones on the walls above, but they didn't expect that the real treasure would be hidden in this shabby city. Rather than painstakingly mining, it was naturally better to pick up the ready-made stones. In such a large city, searching alone wasn't very efficient. Even if Lu Yi wasn't slow, it wouldn't be easy to search the entire city. After a moment of thought, Lu Yi took Hupu out of the spirit beast pouch and called out, "Lu Yi, where is this place?" Hupa had been kept in the spirit beast pouch all this time, so he naturally didn't see the light of day. Suddenly appearing in such a strange place, she couldn't help but be a little confused. A treasure ground. Lu Yi gave a simple explanation of the current situation. Yi instantly understood. I understand. He wanted her to help find the fire spirit stones hidden in this city. Be careful, there's a group of people from Myriad Devil Ridge here, led by Wuji. Don't let them find you. Yi nodded and quickly disappeared, followed by Hupa. With Yi's help, the efficiency of the treasure hunt doubled, and the harvest this time wouldn't be bad. After that, Lu Yi also investigated the collapsed building, and from time to time, he would discover something. More than 2 hours later, Lu Yi held a round plate carved out of fire spirit stones in his hand and carefully examined it. This round plate was the size of a palm, and like the furniture he had collected before, it had very deep chiseling marks. This clearly wasn't a piece of furniture, but rather a plate. But the plate was too shallow, so it couldn't be used to hold anything. Because of the markings, he could distinguish the complete appearance of these spirit markings. After observing for a moment, Lu Yi poured his spirit energy into it, trying to repair the damaged areas along the original markings. This was not difficult for him. It was similar to the test of setting up arrays in the 100 Formation Pagoda. As for whether he could reproduce the full appearance of this unknown spiritual pattern, he could only rely on his luck. After all, too many lines were missing, and he had no idea what the original spiritual pattern looked like. A moment later, Lu Ye's expression became strange. As he repaired it, the damaged spirit inscriptions gradually revealed themselves. However, the more he looked at it, the more the spirit inscriptions on the fire spirit stone disc looked like explosive spirit inscriptions. It was roughly the same as the explosion spiritual tattoo he had mastered, but its internal structure was slightly different. The construction of a spiritual tattoo was not unchanging. For example, the spiritual tattoos that Lu Yi had obtained from the talent tree were different from the spiritual tattoos that he had seen in books. He had also compared the effects of these differences and finally came to a conclusion. If the same spiritual tattoo was constructed using the method on the talent tree, the power would be about 10% to 20% stronger than the method learned from books. This was already an extremely impressive improvement. Therefore, during the repair process, Lu Yi could basically conclude that the pattern carved on the fire spirit stone disc should be an explosion spiritual tattoo. It was just that the construction method was slightly different from the one he had mastered. The fire element was violent. The fire spirit stone itself contained pure fire spiritual energy. It was the most unstable of all the elemental spirit stones. Under normal circumstances, it had to be handled gently. If it was accidentally knocked, it was very likely to cause the internal spiritual energy to become chaotic and explode. What would happen if it was supplemented with an explosion spiritual tattoo? A thought flashed through his mind. The repair of the fire spirit stone disc in his hand had also reached the final juncture. When the last foundational element was completed and the explosion spiritual tattoo was formed, Lu Yi suddenly realized that what he was holding in his hand was not a fire spirit stone, but an extremely dangerous thing that could explode at any time. With the support of the explosive spiritual tattoos, the already violent fire spiritual energy showed signs of going out of control. Even Lu Yi, who had the cultivation of the true lake stage, could not help but feel a trace of fear. He had a feeling that if the Zhou GS item exploded in his hand, it would be a threat to the 1L version to a certain extent. This disc was a killing weapon. Lu Yi suddenly realized this problem. This thing was used by the residents of this city to kill enemies. No wonder there were many collapsed houses here, and there were traces of destruction. He thought that it was because of years of disrepair and collapse, but now it seemed that this killing weapon should be one of the reasons. What kind of people used to live in this city? This environment of Surreo also produced killing weapons like Eujian City and Contestant Peak. They must be a group of people who were not to be trifled with. After dispersing his spiritual energy and solving the explosion spiritual tattoo, the heart-palpitating feeling also disappeared. Strike this fire spirit stone disc and pass it to Xiao Yi. If she found something similar, she must be careful. She must be careful not to bump into it. He continued to search. There were not many fire spirit stone discs like killing weapons, but they were not few either. It could be seen that the residents here had indeed mastered a method of refining killing weapons with the help of fire spirit stones a long time ago. Time passed. After entering this underground city for half a day, Lu Yi had already gained a lot. Fire spirit stones were very useful to him. Not only could it help him cultivate, but his talent tree could also devour the spiritual energy within and use it to ignite those leaves. In this way, he did not have to worry about the talent tree's resources for a short period of time. Although he spent half a day, Lu Yi had only searched less than 10% of this huge city. It could be seen how vast this city was. It was rare to come across such an opportunity, and this place contained such great benefits. Naturally, he could not miss it. Just as Lu Yi was about to continue searching, he suddenly felt a wave of spiritual energy coming from afar. Lu Yi looked up and saw that there were lights flashing continuously in that direction. Spiritual energy was surging endlessly. That direction was where Ying Wuji's team was. Were they attacked? Following Yi Ten's brows, he went north for half a day and did not even see a shadow. What did Ying Wuji's team encounter? It could not be the people of Grand Heaven Alliance. This was considered the two sides of Lonely Mountain City E of Wan Mo Ling. The closest side of Grand Heaven Alliance was Ashen Flame Mountain E. Other than himself, there was only Missing Moon Immortal in Ashen Flame Mountain E. Missing Moon Immortal was a divine ocean tier cultivator. Naturally, she could not have come here to kill a group of Cloud River tier cultivators. Lu Yi was puzzled. He did not know what had happened over there. He hurriedly sent a message to Yi and asked for her location. Then, he immediately rushed toward her. In a short while, he found Yi and Hu Po. Lu Yi hurriedly put Hu Po into the spirit beast pouch. Just as he was about to rush over to meet up with Wuji and the others, a loud buzzing sound suddenly rang out. Then, the earth shook and the mountains shook. Above his head, gravel rustled and fell. Lu Yi stood in the air and looked down. He saw that in the ruined city below, the crisscrossing trenches that flowed with hot lava were completely boiling. A large number of bubbles burst, and lava splattered everywhere. Many stone houses collapsed one after another. It looked like heaven and earth were about to collapse. Looking at the crisscrossing trenches, Lu Yi suddenly realized that something was not quite right. He hurriedly leaped up and flew to a higher place. He looked around and his eyes could not help but narrow. At this height, he finally sensed that something was wrong. The trenches that crisscrossed the entire underground city were connected by 2 points. The countless ditches that formed the heavenly array were connected to each other and formed 2 points. They were the countless ditches that formed the heavenly array. Based on this, the lava flowing in the trenches was the source of energy for the great array to operate. He had not noticed it before, mainly because the city was too big and it was difficult to see the whole picture. Furthermore, who would have thought that there was actually a grand formation hidden within such a city? What kind of array was this? Lu Yi stood still and observed, trying his best to imprint the information about the array Dao in his mind. Soon, the name of a great array appeared in his mind. Octopole Demon Sealing Array. The great array hidden in the city below was 70% similar to the Octopole Demon Sealing Array. However, considering the long passage of time and the many changes in the array Dao, the great array below should be the Octopole Demon Sealing Array from a long time ago. This array was extremely complicated to set up, so even Lu Yi had not set it up before because he had no use for it. This array focused on the word seal, so it had the effect of sealing. What was this array sealing? And according to the current situation, even though many years had passed, this array was still operating because the lava flowing endlessly in it had been providing energy for the array to operate. No matter what this array was sealing, the situation was not good. Perhaps it was because it had not been repaired for a long time, or perhaps it was because of their various actions after arriving, causing this great array to show signs of collapse. No matter what this array was sealing, once it collapsed, it would inevitably see the light of day again. What had happened to Wuji and the others? Without time to think too much, Lu Yi turned around and flew in that direction. It was not advisable to stay in this dangerous place for long. However, just as he moved, the lava in the trenches below suddenly exploded, and pillars of lava soared into the sky, reaching 1,000 feet high. In the direction of the entrance, it had been completely submerged by the rising lava and could no longer be seen. "Brother Nyo." Wuji's voice came from not far away, sounding a little panicked. Lu Yi turned his head to look and saw Wuji leading a few people to flee in this direction. There was also a group of humanoid figures following behind them. These humanoid figures were all covered in flames, and their bodies were constantly twisting and turning. As they chased, they constantly shot out balls of flames from their side, causing endless shadow and the others to be battered and exhausted. It should be these things that had fought with Wuji and the others just now. Chapter 878. There were obviously 2 less people behind Wuji, so they should have already been killed. Lu Yi was also caught off guard by this sudden situation. He never thought that such a treasure trove would be so dangerous. Looking at the pursuers behind Wuji and the others, Lu Yi raised his eyebrows and revealed a look of surprise. Fire spirit race? He had once seen records of this race in a book in his honored master's library pavilion. In the 9 provinces, the main living beings were the human race and the monster race, but in addition to these 2 major races, there were also some other small races, such as the 5 elements spirit race. The 5 elements spirit race was blessed by the heavens and was naturally proficient in many mysterious secret techniques. Many of the spirit inscriptions mastered by the human race today were created by generations of sages studying the secret techniques of the 5 elements spirit race. This was also the reason why the Five Elements spirit race was recorded in his honored master's library pavilion. However, the Five Elements spirit race was extremely rare and ordinary cultivators might not even see one in their lifetime. But at this moment, there were more than 100 fire spirits behind Ing Wu Ji and the others. The environment here was special, so it was normal for it to give birth to such a strange existence like the fire spirit race, but the number was a bit strange. So, the octopole demon sealing formation in this city was sealing the fire spirit race? If this was the case, then there might be more fire spirits here than what he saw. As this thought flashed through his mind, Lu Yi shuddered and instinctively raised his hand to touch his waist, but he touched nothing. Seeing Ing Wu Ji and the others rushing towards him, he could only raise his hand and cast a spell behind him, slightly delaying the pursuit of the fire spirit race. In the blink of an eye, the two sides had converged. "Let's go!" Ing Wu Ji immediately turned and headed towards the entrance. Everyone followed closely behind. However, a scene that made them despair appeared. As the octopole demon sealing formation in the city lost its effect, the magma in the trenches surged and many fire spirit race figures appeared. Among the Five Elements spirit race, the fire spirit race was one of the most hot-tempered ones. Coupled with the fact that they had been sealed for so many years, they had long lost their rationality. Sensing the auras of Lu Yi and the others, they swarmed over from all directions, instantly surrounding them. Lu Yi and Ing Wu Ji opened the way. Lu Ye's hands flashed with spells while Wu Ji's two curved blades flew through the air. Ah! A shrill cry suddenly sounded out from behind. Someone had been killed, and he was swarmed by the fire spirits in the surroundings, causing him to be instantly transformed into a rain of blood. The other people's expressions were filled with grief, indignation, and fear, but they were powerless to help. Lu Yi and Ing Wu Ji didn't even look back as they continued to charge forward. However, more and more fire spirits came from the front. They seemed to understand their plan and had already blocked off their path. There were obstructions in front and pursuers behind. Under such circumstances, it was practically a hopeless situation. "Get down!" Ing Wu Ji made a prompt decision. With an angry roar, he took the lead to descend. Crow was in midair, and there were Han Quan everywhere. If he landed on the ground, at least he wouldn't have to worry about being attacked from below. After a few breaths of time, all of them finally descended into the dilapidated city, and a large number of fire spirits surged over from all directions like a surging tide. More and more fire spirits came from Zhangyi and joined the encirclement. Cries of cultivators rang out continuously. The Cloud River tier cultivators who had descended from the sky couldn't withstand such an attack at all, and were all killed or injured in a short while. Ing Wu Ji's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. He had never thought that the original opportunity would turn into such a great danger in such a short time. The situation was really unpredictable. What made him feel slightly reassured was that Niu Meng's performance was extremely eye-catching, and his strength was outstanding. In any case, he could cooperate with him. If it were any other time, he would definitely be able to detect the abnormality, because with the strength that Niu Meng displayed now, he definitely couldn't be a nameless person. His mastery of sorcery was not the slightest bit inferior to Lu Qing of the 10,000 Laws Pavilion, and even surpassed him. Lu Qing had obtained 4th place in the Cloud River contest, so Niu Meng could not be worse than him no matter what. But in reality, Niu Meng did not have a seat in the Cloud River contest at all. But now, the situation was critical, and they could be drowned by the tide of fire spirits at any time. How could Ing Wu Ji think too much? As he resisted, he called out loudly, "Brother Niu, hold on, I have already sent a message inside, and we will have reinforcements soon." Lu Yi did not make a sound, and just used sorcery to repel the enemy. These fire spirits were actually not very strong. Compared to the state of human cultivators, most of them were at the Spirit Stream and Cloud River stage, and there were very few true lake stage cultivators. But Lu Yi could clearly feel that in the crisscrossing ravines, there was an even more powerful qi slowly recovering. It was not that the fire spirit race did not have any powerhouses, but the octagonal demon sealing formation had not completely lost its effect, and those powerhouses were still in a sealed state. But as time passed, these fire spirit race powerhouses would eventually break out of the seal. So they had to kill their way out as soon as possible. It was not safe to wait for reinforcements from the Lone Mountain Pass. What made Lu Yi especially uncomfortable was that these fire spirits seemed to have a natural resistance to fire-type sorcery, so it was a bit troublesome for him to kill them. 30 seconds later, Wuji grunted. He was attacked by a true lake stage fire spirit race cultivator at close range. The fire spirit race was naturally proficient in many fire-type secret arts, and every one of them was a powerful fire-type sorcerer. But it did not mean that they only knew how to cast sorcery. Some fire spirits were born tall and strong, and it was obvious that they were the type that specialized in close combat. Although the two were relying on each other now, it was still hard for two fists to fight against four hands. When he staggered back, the door was wide open, and many fire-type sorcery came at him. The aura of death enveloped him, and Wuji showed a look of despair. He had just ascended to the true lake stage not long ago, and the brilliance of his life had just begun. He did not expect it to end here. Early on in his cultivation, the elders of the Sun Luo Hall had taught him that the path of cultivation was full of thorns, and life and death were unpredictable. Every battle had to be fought with the determination and courage to die. He had always done this. However, at this juncture, Wuji was still somewhat unwilling to give up. His great life had just begun. How could he die here? But so what if he was unwilling? His cultivation was here, and no matter what, he could not unleash power that far exceeded his cultivation level. Then, he saw a bright flash of a blade slash before his eyes. All of the spells that were attacking him were destroyed in midair. Waves of heat swept out, attacking Wuji's body and stirring up his mind. He stared blankly at the back of the familiar figure that had suddenly appeared in front of him. Looking at the familiar long saber, he felt numb for a moment. Niu Ming, a sorcerer? From the Eastern Hill Pass? A cultivator from the Wan Mo Ridge? Liar. When he first saw this person, he felt that this person was Lu Yi. But when he saw the battlefield mark on the back of this person's hand, he had to dispel his doubts. Because the battlefield mark was a gift from the heavens. How could someone from the Grand Sky Alliance have the battlefield mark of the Wan Mo Ridge? But he really did have it. Many times, he felt that this person wanted to kill him. He originally thought it was an illusion, but now it seemed that it was not. It was a warning sign in his mind. It was his instinct to survive. It really was him. It was him. Even at this critical moment, Wuji's mind was shaken by what he saw. Follow me. Lu Yi had already recovered his original voice. He exhaled softly, and at the same time, the weapon box at his waist flew out. The Pan Mountain saber slashed out a series of sharp saber lights, which crackled and cut through the wave. As expected, the Mountain Pan Dao was more suitable for him. This was especially true when dealing with enemies like the fire spirit race. Spells were simply too unreliable. If a spell was cast at full power, its power would be reduced by at least half when it struck the fire spirit race's body. These fire spirits had an innate resistance to fire element spells. With the long blade in hand, Lu Yi seemed to have become a different person. Spiritual energy surged around his body, and wherever he went, the fire spirit race fell like straw in the wind. Although Wuji was shocked, he knew that if he did not follow Lu Yi's steps, he would die without a doubt. He knew why Lu Yi was at this critical moment. Hai Jie taught him not because of their insignificant friendship on the Wushuang continent, but because of this moment. The two of them working together was better than one fighting alone. Lu Yi needed someone to block the attacks from behind him. He also cooperated very well, just like when they worked together on the Wushuang continent. The powerhouses of the fire spirit race had not recovered yet, so it was the best time to escape. If they continued to delay, even Lu Yi would not be able to leave this place alive. Looking down from the sky, countless fire spirit race powerhouses filled the large karst cave, and in the crisscrossing ditches of the ruined city, more and more fire spirit race powerhouses were still recovering. In this world filled with fire spirit race powerhouses, two figures, one in front and one behind, were unstoppable as they charged towards the entrance. However, when they were 1,000 feet away from the entrance, magma suddenly roiled up in front of them, quickly transforming into a giant palm that slammed down in Lu Yi and Ying Wuji's direction. The giant palm slammed down with astonishing momentum, and all the fire spirit race powerhouses it encountered along the way were knocked dizzy, many of them exploding and dying on the spot. Lu Yi, who was charging at the front, was greatly alarmed. Looking up at the giant palm and sensing its power, he knew that a powerhouse of the fire spirit race had secretly taken action. Perhaps they had not completely escaped, but they could already control sorcery. If they had such ability without completely escaping, once they did, who knew what kind of shocking methods they could use? In such a situation, they could either meet it head-on or retreat. There were many pursuers behind them, so they obviously could not retreat. They had fought so hard to reach this position, and if they retreated now, they might not be able to escape. So, Lu Yi did not hesitate at all and rushed towards the giant palm. With a thought, the power of his talent tree was stimulated, and roots invisible to the naked eye grew on the surface of his body. At the same time, he urged his spirit chi to pour into the long saber in his hand. In an instant, the Pan Shan saber was wrapped in flames, as if it was really burning. Lu Yi slashed forward fiercely, his tiny figure and the giant palm forming an extremely obvious visual contrast. Immediately after, the giant palm submerged Lu Yi and Ying Wuji's figures. I forgot to set the time. Recently, I've been a bit busy with all kinds of trivial matters. Lu Yi clicked to download the best book chasing app. Many readers use it to read books. Chapter 879. In the next moment, with a flash of blade light, Shui Mo broke through the giant palm and charged out. The scorching power was blocked by the power of the talent tree, but the huge force caused the web between his thumb and forefinger to crack and blood to flow. Even the corners of his mouth were bleeding, and the blood in his chest and abdomen were roiling. Ying Wuji, who was following behind him, also grunted, his face pale. He was secretly horrified. If it wasn't for Shui Mo blocking in front of him, he would have been killed by the might of that palm alone. After passing through the last barrier, the two of them rushed into the stone passageway they came from, one in front and one behind. As soon as they entered, the pressure was greatly reduced because they no longer had to worry about being attacked from all sides. However, many fire spirits had already entered the corridor and were climbing up. When they sensed Shui Mo and Ying Wuji's auras, they naturally tried their best to stop them. Shui Mo held the long blade in his hand. Blade light flashed as he continued forward. Everywhere he passed, fire spirits would fall. Occasionally, there would be fish that slipped through the net, but Ying Wuji would finish them off. Roar! A heaven-shaking roar suddenly came from behind them. The roar was mixed with endless anger and resentment. Just the power of this roar shook Shui Mo and Ying Wuji's minds and made them lose their balance. At the same time, they felt like needles were stabbing into their heads. Divine Sea Realm. Ying Wuji was shocked. His perception was not as sharp as Shui Mo's, and the scene before was too chaotic, so he did not notice too many things. How could he know that they had not seen all the fire spirits before? There were even more powerful fire spirits that were sealed within the seal and were about to break free. It was only now that he realized. The pain in his head was undoubtedly caused by the impact to his soul. Just a roar alone had such power, so it had to be at the Divine Sea Realm. Along with that furious roar, a vast and mighty aura came from behind. While he was busy, Ingwuji turned his head to look and saw a scene that shocked him to the core. He saw magma tumbling behind him, carrying a powerful impact. A wave of air quickly swept in this direction. In the tumbling magma, there were a large number of fire spirits floating. Lu! Brother Nyo, run! Ingwuji hurriedly shouted. He didn't know whether Shui Mo would die or not, but he knew that he would definitely die if he were to be engulfed by the magma. However, although he had recognized Shui Mo's identity, he did not dare to call him by his name. He was afraid that Shui Mo would suddenly turn around and attack him. He kept reminding himself that this person was Fierce Nyo, not Luia. Even though Shui Mo didn't turn around to look, he knew that extremely great danger was approaching from behind, so he immediately sped up and slaughtered a bloody path through the obstruction of numerous fire spirits. After running for a long time, a light suddenly came from above. It was the entrance to the stone platform. In the next instant, Shui Mo's figure darted out, and Ingwuji followed behind in a sorry state. The two of them looked around and saw that there were many more figures of the fire spirit race at the mouth of the volcano. Clearly, they didn't know if they were still alive or not. Without any delay, the two of them soared into the sky and rushed out of the volcano. When they looked back, an unforgettable scene was imprinted in their eyes. Magma erupted, shooting into the sky like a pillar. Heat waves swept out, distorting the void. The earth trembled and the mouth of the mountain cracked. From the erupting magma, figures of the fire spirit race rushed out, all of them roaring at the sky, as if venting their resentment after being sealed for so many years. Their roars were filled with grief and anger, causing the world to change color. Seeing the light of day again, many of the fire spirit race viciously vented their anger before suddenly turning their heads, glaring at Shui Mo and Ingwuji with eyes spitting fire. Although it had been a long time, they still remembered clearly that it was the humans who had used some method to seal them. With such a deep hatred, they naturally would not rest until one of them was dead. Ingwuji's scalp went numb as he hurriedly flew in the direction of Lonely Mountain City. When they were attacked in the underground cave, he had already sent a message to the mountain pass for help. Presumably, the mountain pass had already sent reinforcements, but at that time, he had no idea how serious the situation was. Now that the situation had changed, the reinforcements sent from the mountain pass might not be of any help. If they wanted to resist this disaster, they could only rely on the strength of the entire Lonely Mountain City. This was not a crisis but a disaster. If it was not handled well, the entire Lonely Mountain City might fall into a great predicament. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, he suddenly saw a figure appear beside him from the corner of his eye. Turning his head to look, he saw Shui Mo, who was wearing a mask, flying side by side with him. You! Ingwuji was extremely puzzled. I, a cultivator of the Myriad Demon's Ridge, am in danger. It is natural for me to escape towards the Lonely Mountain City. Why are you, a member of the Grand Heaven Alliance, joining in the fun? Are you really not afraid of death? But soon, he saw through Shui Mo's intentions. If Shui Mo escaped towards the Ashen Flame Mountain Pass, it would only bring danger to the Ashen Flame Mountain Pass. These fire spirit race, whose roars were filled with resentment, were not like the cultivators of the Myriad Demon's Ridge, who were intimidated by the legendary woman's reputation and did not dare to act rashly. If they really led the fire spirit race to the Ashen Flame Mountain Pass, the woman alone, no matter how strong she was, might not be able to deal with such a crisis. When the defense line was broken, the higher-ups of the military state guard would definitely hold them accountable. So no matter what, Shui Mo could not escape in the direction of the Ashen Flame Mountain Pass. Since he could not escape to the Ashen Flame Mountain Pass, he could only go to the Lonely Mountain City. But you are from the Grand Heaven Alliance. Ingwuji's mind was in a mess. Although he did not know why Shui Mo had shown him the Myriad Demon's Ridge battlefield imprint, he had a feeling that Shui Mo would not be able to show it a second time. So once he reached the lonely mountain city, his identity would most likely be exposed. With his name as Liu Ye of the Jade Blood Sect, once his identity was exposed, not to mention the sun tomorrow, even the moon tonight would not be able to be seen. Moreover, there was still him, an insider. As a cultivator of the Myriad Demon's Ridge, how could he not report what he knew? Although he had been thinking about the relationship between the two camps during this time, he did not have a definite answer in his heart. As a member of the military state guard of the Myriad Demon's Ridge, Ingwuji naturally would not make a choice that was disadvantageous to the Myriad Demon's Ridge. This guy couldn't be. Just as he felt a strong sense of danger, Ingwuji suddenly panicked. The feeling that this person wanted to kill him was stronger than ever. He turned his head and met Shui Mo's eyes. Ingwuji sucked in a breath of cold air. This guy, he probably wanted to kill him to silence him. He was the only one who knew his identity and secret. If he killed him, wouldn't no one else know? He had just escaped from the wolf's den, only to enter the tiger's mouth. Ingwuji could only sigh at his bitter fate. In the crisis of life and death, a thought flashed through his mind. He hurriedly said, "With the heavens as my witness, I, Ingwuji, will never reveal a single word of your secrets to anyone in this life. If I violate this oath, I will die on the spot." Under the mask, Shui Mo's cold gaze softened. He was just about to ask Ingwuji to swear an oath to the heavens, but he did not expect him to do so. "Good boy." Shui Mo let go of the mountain pan saber. Ingwuji was almost about to collapse. "Give me the thing." Shui Mo spoke again. "What thing?" Ingwuji's mood was up and down. He had no idea what Shui Mo was talking about. "The thing that you mined in the underground cave." Ingwuji finally understood why Shui Mo had asked him to collect all the fire spirit stones that they had mined. At that time, he had said that it would make it easier to split the profit. Now he knew, it was to make it easier for him to rob him. So it turned out that he had already had this plan at that time. "Can you be more human?" Ingwuji was furious. Shui Mo stared at him stubbornly. Although he and Yi had gained a lot in the underground cave, things like fire spirit stones were not much to him. Ingwuji and the others should have gained a lot. "I'll give you a price, I'll give you everything." Ingwuji angrily threw out a storage bag. Inside was the fire spirit stones that they had worked so hard to mine. He was furious. Stuff yourself to death. However, thinking about it, it was fortunate that he had collected all the fire spirit stones. The few Cloud River tier cultivators who had followed him into the cave had all died in the chaos. They could not even find their storage bags. If he had not collected the fire spirit stones, then all the work that he had collected before would have been wasted. He was still very curious. "That battlefield imprint of yours," Shui Mo said calmly, "do you know how to live longer?" Ingwuji immediately shut up. He turned his head to look, and his expression changed. He saw that the dense streams of light behind him had gathered into a torrent of fiery light. With the volcanic crater as the source, it connected the sky and the earth with a mighty momentum. The number of fire spirit tribe members was larger than they had thought. And now, they only saw those that had rushed out from underground. There should be more that were still hidden in the depths of the ground. Fortunately, he and Shui Mo had both advanced to the true lake tier, and their flying speed was much faster than when they were in the Cloud River tier. Otherwise, they might not have been able to escape from the pursuit of the fire spirit tribe. As they flew forward, the pursuers behind them were like maggots that chased after them. "Inform your lone mountain city to prepare for battle," Shui Mo said. "I've already informed them." Why would he need Shui Mo to remind him of this kind of thing? They had already sent a message to the mountain pass while they were fleeing. They could only hope that the Divine C-tier cultivators there would take this seriously. Otherwise, there would definitely be a great calamity at Lone Mountain City this time. Originally, there had been a team that had set off from Lone Mountain City to support them. However, they had already returned because that little bit of reinforcements was of no help to the current situation. After a full 4 hours, a towering mountain pass suddenly appeared in front of them. They had arrived at Lone Mountain City. The city wasn't too big. It was much smaller than the city of the Fire Spirit tribe in the underground cave. It wasn't that the Wanmo Ridge was stingy, but that this size was suitable for defense. This was the same no matter which mountain pass it was. Only by shrinking the effective forces as much as possible could the defense line be impregnable. The city wasn't big, but the city walls were hundreds of meters tall. At this moment, on the city walls, there were many figures. They looked in this direction from afar. When they saw the torrent of fiery light behind Shueimo and Ingwuji, their expressions changed. Chapter 880. On the city wall of Lonely Mountain City, many figures stood, led by 2 people. One was a burly man with a round waist, and the other was an enchanting woman with a woman's hair in a bun. These 2 people were the 2 divine ocean realm cultivators guarding Lonely Mountain City, Wan Zhonggang and Tan Yaonyang. It was normal for both Haotian Alliance and Wan Moling to have 2 divine ocean realm cultivators guarding a mountain pass. Some important mountain passes might have more divine ocean realm cultivators, but there would be no more than 5 at most. There were many divine ocean realm cultivators in Jiuzhou, but the 2 camps also had many mountain passes to guard. After dividing up, it was naturally impossible for there to be too many divine ocean realm cultivators guarding each mountain pass. Just like Tsang Yen Mountain Pass, the situation of one person guarding one mountain pass was unique in the 2 camps since ancient times. One reason was that Nian Yuxian was strong enough, and the other most important reason was that she was a ghost cultivator, and not a ghost cultivator in the ordinary sense. Indeed, she had no soldiers or generals under her command, but for so many years, Lonely Mountain City did not dare to invade at all. It was because if they left Lonely Mountain City's protection, there might be people in the world who could block Nian Yuxian's attack, but it was definitely not the 2 people in Lonely Mountain City. At this moment, on the city wall of Lonely Mountain City, Wan Zhonggang and Tan Yaonyang jumped and looked into the distance. The torrent of fire was so powerful that even they could not help but be moved. Pass down the order to prepare for battle. Wan Zhonggang's voice was like thunder. Even if it was just an ordinary voice, it was deafening. As he spoke, his eyes revealed a fierce light. Damn it, where did Ingwuji attract such a group of things? According to the report, they woke up from the underground lava pool. They went to mine the earth fire, but I don't know what they touched. It might be something left behind from the previous era. Heh! Fire Spirit Race, it's been a long time since I last saw them. You have to be careful in case someone takes advantage of the situation, Tan Yaonyang warned. Wan Zhonggang naturally knew what she was afraid of. He nodded and said, "Don't worry, I know what I'm doing." While the 2 were talking, Lu Yi and Ingwuji had already flown to the front of Lonely Mountain City. The next moment, they all entered and landed on the city wall. Ingwuji let out a long sigh. It was only at this moment that the great sense of danger in his heart gradually disappeared. Being chased by such a group of fire spirit pearls was truly a little frightening. Turning his head to look at Lu Yi, he saw that this guy's breathing was steady and his eyes were calm, without the slightest sense of fear or uneasiness. Ingwuji was also convinced. A cultivator from the Grand Heaven Alliance who was only in the true lake stage could barge into the Wanmo Ridge so openly and remain so calm and composed. He was probably the only person in history who could do this. Not to mention seeing such a thing, he had never even heard of it. If he were to tell others about it, no one would believe him. However, he also knew that the Myriad Devil Ridge was a little shady. Lu Yi had come with him. Even if he was wearing a mask that concealed his true appearance, the people of Lonely Mountain Pass would not treat him as an enemy. They would only subconsciously think that he was an acquaintance of theirs. Unfortunately, he had also sworn an oath to never reveal any information about Lu Yi to anyone. He felt extremely awkward. On the city walls of Lonely Mountain Pass, figures collided. The atmosphere was tense, and a great battle was about to break out. Although there were many cultivators guarding Lonely Mountain Pass, there were definitely not as many as there were now. However, because of the changes in the Cloud River battlefield, a large number of Cloud River tier cultivators had nowhere to go and came to the front line of the confrontation between the two camps. Now there were more people available. On top of the city wall, there was a formation at regular intervals. At the core of each formation was a powerful and expensive large-scale spiritual weapon. It was these formations and spirit tools that formed the sturdy defense of Lonely Mountain Pass. There were originally such formations at Gray Flame Mountain Pass, but most of them were damaged due to lack of maintenance. Although it was not the first time that Lu Yi had participated in such a large-scale battle, no matter which mystery realm he had experienced before, it was not as strict as this one in the 9 states. The battle had not yet begun, but Lonely Mountain Pass already gave people the feeling that it was impenetrable. The closest thing to the 9 states was probably the battle against the Beast Tide in the 2-realm city of the Dragon Soaring Realm. However, that battle was limited to the Cloud River tier, and could not be compared to today. From another perspective, if the Grand Heaven Alliance wanted to take down such a pass, they would definitely have to pay a huge price. Roar! A deafening roar came from the front. The torrent of fire was already within 5 kilometers of Lonely Mountain Pass. The flames on the bodies of many fire spirits surged, burning the void until it distorted. The gathered army had the terrifying might of wanting to burn everything in front of them. Kill! A furious roar suddenly came from somewhere on the city walls. In the next instant, a loud and complicated buzzing sound rang out. On the city wall, many cultivators who were controlling the array activated their spirit power. Inside the array lines quickly lit up. The spirit power of the spirit stones embedded in the array was quickly sucked dry and turned into powder. Boom! Beautiful pillars of light shot into the sky from many formations, connecting the sky and the earth, and the momentum was astonishing. As the formation operated, the might of the large spirit artifacts and magic artifacts that were placed at the core was activated. Amidst the enormous buzzing and trembling, they transformed into numerous destructive attacks that enveloped the fire spirits that were attacking them. Lu Yi looked up and saw that on the city walls there were many different types of attacks that displayed great power. There was a huge net-like attack that covered a large area, and all the fire spirits that were wrapped in it were cut into pieces. There were also attacks that were like pillars of light. They were simple and direct, but wherever the pillars of light passed, they would create a vacuum in the fire spirit race's army. All the fire spirit race soldiers that came into contact with the pillars of light were turned into dust. There were also streaks of sword chi and blade chi that swept out, and even the void was cut open. Lu Yi watched quietly, but his mind was not as calm as he looked. With such power, even a divine sea realm cultivator might not have a good ending. The fire spirits that were mixed in strength naturally suffered great casualties. Formations could often allow cultivators to unleash power that was far beyond their own level. It was most suitable to use in a battle like this. The many destructive attacks were the result of the overlapping power of the formation and the core of the spirit tools. As for the core of the formation, it was impossible for any cultivator to control them alone. They had to borrow the power of the formation to have enough power to activate them. Moreover, every time they were used, they consumed a lot of energy. The spirit stones placed on the formations had to be replaced immediately, or there would not be enough energy to activate them again. Not only that, the formations and the spirit tools at the core were also very easy to damage from such violent vibration. There had to be specialized cultivators on the side to check and maintain them, and constantly repair and replace them. A formation like this that was specially used to defend against strong enemies required the precise cooperation of a small team, and there had to be at least one true Lake Realm cultivator in the team. Lonely Mountain City's attacks did not come in a swarm. Instead, they were continuous in batches to ensure that there were no gaps in the attack. The cooperation of the cultivators in the formations showed the tacit understanding of the myriad Demon Ridge cultivators. The battle seemed to be going smoothly. Under such dense and powerful attacks, no matter how many fire spirits came, they would only be slaughtered. They could not even think of getting within 1.5 kilometers of Lonely Mountain City. However, the situation soon changed. After a large number of fire spirits were killed or injured, a powerful aura erupted from within the fire spirit army. All the cultivators who sensed this aura were shocked. This was because the strength of this aura had reached the divine ocean realm. Although there were true lake realm cultivators in the fire spirit army, they were not taken seriously by the myriad Demon Ridge. However, the divine ocean realm was different. This was an existence that no one could ignore. Even Wan Zhonggang and Tan Yaonyang could not help but have serious expressions. They focused their vision and saw a figure that stood out from the rest of the fire spirit race's huge army. The fire spirit's body was burning with fire, and his entire body was bright orange-yellow after being burned. His eyes were like two small suns that were emitting dazzling light. After he revealed his aura, all the fire spirits gathered toward him. Then, an unbelievable scene appeared. The auras of the fire spirit realm warriors were merging with each other. The aura of the fire spirit realm warrior at the spirit sea realm became more vigorous. If that was all, it would not be a big deal. The key was that with the development of this change, the auras of the other fire spirits were also growing rapidly. It was as if in an instant, these fire spirits all had strength that far exceeded their original level. Of course, it was impossible for strength to suddenly increase, but with the unity of will, their aura could be strengthened. This is... Wan Zhonggang's expression changed. He suddenly recalled that he had once seen a few words recorded in an ancient book. Working together with one's heart. This was not a praise, nor was it a description. It was a secret technique. A secret technique that belonged to the 5 Elements spirit race. The 5 Elements spirit race was naturally proficient in all kinds of mysterious secret technique. Many of the spirit tattoos of the human race were obtained by the ancestors through studying the secret techniques of the 5 Elements spirit race. Unity was the most powerful secret technique of the 5 Elements spirit race. It did not have any power by itself, but it could allow the 5 Elements spirit race to connect their auras. In this way, they could unite their will and exert strength that far exceeded their original level. Because of the special nature of the 5 Elements spirit race, it was very easy to use this secret technique without too many obstacles. However, this was not easy for the human race. Every human being was an individual with a different aura. Therefore, it was extremely difficult to merge the auras of human beings. Human cultivators could also form a formation, but if they wanted to form a formation, they had to practice for a long time and countless times. Only then could they cooperate with each other at critical moments and have a tacit understanding. Compared to the 5 Elements spirit race, the difference was not just a little. What enmity! What resentment! Wan Zhonggang looked helpless. I'm afraid these guys are crazy. Chapter 881. The fire spirit race's secret technique was powerful, but the more powerful the secret technique, the greater the price to pay. Working together could indeed connect the fire spirit race's aura, but in this way, every fire spirit race member would have to endure a pressure that exceeded their own limit. Just like now, when they used this secret technique, many fire spirit race members suddenly exploded because they were not strong enough. Even those fire spirit race members who could successfully use the secret technique would be greatly injured afterward. The fire spirit race would not use this trump card unless they had to fight for their lives. Therefore, Wan Zhonggang was helpless. He did not know why these fire spirit race members were so crazy. However, he did not know that after being sealed for thousands of years or even longer, these fire spirit race members had already lost their minds. Any human could arouse their strong desire to kill. Otherwise, they would not have chased Lu Yi and Parrot Chicken all the way here. Thousands of divine Sea Realm Fire Spirit race members gathered around him. His aura was so strong that it made people's hair stand on end. The fire on his body also became more intense. Many true Lake Realm Fire Spirit race members also formed a formation with their clansmen. Their auras all increased dramatically. As far as the eye could see, the army of the Fire Spirit race that was originally like a tray of loose sand had taken on a new look at this moment. Numerous formations that included different numbers of Fire Spirit race clansmen were surging towards Lone Mountain City in succession. From afar, it looked like balls of fire of various sizes were approaching the myriad Demon Ridge's front line. On the city wall, the formation was still buzzing, but its effect was not as obvious as before. After forming a formation, each ball of fire had one or more true Lake Realm Fire Spirit race members as the core. The other clansmen acted as vassals, greatly increasing their ability to resist the attacks of the human race. In the fierce attacks, Fire Spirit race members were constantly attacked. They were torn out of the fireballs they were in and died instantly. On the spot, balls of fire were also blown up in the air. None of the Fire Spirit race members who formed a formation in these fireballs were spared. However, the Fire Spirit race's advance suddenly accelerated. 5 kilometers, 5 kilometers, 1.5 kilometers, even if they suffered heavy casualties, even if they had the power to exterminate their race, it could not stop the Fire Spirit race's determination and pace of revenge against the human race. Just as the Fire Spirit race was about to charge into Lone Mountain City, a furious shout suddenly rang out, "Activate the formation!" A buzzing sound rang out, and the entire Lonely Mountain Pass quaked. The formation bases placed all over the city were activated, and a huge number of spirit stones were rapidly consumed. A curtain of light visible to the naked eye rose up, enveloping the entire Lonely Mountain Pass. The Fire Spirit tribe at the front was already 1 mile away from Lonely Mountain City. They were about to enter the city, but they were stopped by the formation. The huge fireball outside the formation slammed heavily into the light screen of the formation, causing it to cave in. However, it quickly recovered, and ripples spread out from the point of impact. The Grand Array here was not something that the Spirit Stream battlefield or the Cloud River battlefield could compare to. Almost all the defensive formations at the mountain passes of the two camps were made by Divine Sea Realm Array formation cultivators. Their defensive power was beyond imagination. The fireballs formed by the formation were blocked outside the formation, and no matter how the Fire Spirit race attacked, they couldn't break through it. However, Lonely Mountain City's attacks would not stop because of this. The defensive formation only protected the outside, but not the inside. The Fire Spirit race was blocked outside, but Lonely Mountain City's attacks were not affected at all. In an instant, the Fire Spirit race could only passively take a beating. This was the cruelty of siege warfare. The defending side had the geographical advantage, and no doubt had a huge advantage. However, if the attacking side wanted to gain something, they had to break the defensive formation as soon as possible. However, how could a formation made by Divine Sea Realm Array formation cultivators be so easy to break? Fireballs continued to attack the defensive light screen without fear of death, but the result was minimal. Instead, the formation was constantly being broken, and the Fire Spirit race suffered heavy casualties. Somewhere on the city wall, Lu Yi watched quietly. Suddenly, he had a strange idea. If he broke one of the formation bases of Lonely Mountain City's defensive formation, he would definitely cause a huge loss to Lonely Mountain City. As soon as he thought of this, he saw the Parrot Chicken looking at him from the corner of his eye. The Parrot Chicken seemed to have the same idea as Lu Yi. He said in a low voice, "Don't do anything rash. If you do, I will expose you even if I have to be punished by the heavens." He had no choice but to let Lu Yi enter Lonely Mountain City under his cover. However, if Lu Yi really wanted to do something he shouldn't, the parrot chicken would not sit by and do nothing. He only prayed that this battle would end quickly and that Luia would get the hell out of here. He could not stay in Lonely Mountain City any longer. After this, if he could survive, he would ask for a transfer immediately. "What can I do?" Luyi replied casually. "You know." The parrot chicken lowered his voice. "Don't worry. I don't want to die yet. If he really attacked here, his identity would be exposed. Lonely Mountain City would suffer losses, but he would not have a good ending either." What was more, Luyi didn't want to do this. It was just an idea that flashed across his mind. Seeing that Luyi really didn't want to do this, the parrot chicken relaxed. At this moment, something else happened on the battlefield. The divine sea realm warrior of the fire spirit race was ready to enter the battlefield himself, seeing that his people had suffered heavy casualties but still could not break the humans' battle array. With him as the center, the formation was the largest in the entire battlefield. Looking at it from afar, it was no longer a fireball, but a blazing sun that had fallen from the 9 heavens. The pressure that was enough to make everyone's heart palpitate spread out. This blazing sun fell from the sky and hit the light screen of the battle array heavily. The light screen of the battle array was unable to bear the heavy pressure and caved in. Everyone's heart was in their throat, afraid that the battle array would break. Fortunately, the battle array was strong enough to withstand this blow. At the same time, the battle array on the city wall was activated and bombarded at the blazing sun, killing the fire spirit race warriors who had formed the battle array. Facing such a huge battle array, the divine sea realm warrior of the fire spirit race was powerless even if he wanted to dodge. Since he couldn't do anything, he might as well go back and watch a movie. Under the continuous bombardment of the battle array of Lonely Mountain City, the warriors who formed the battle array were dying and the size of the blazing sun was shrinking rapidly. Boom, 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 one side kept colliding, and the other side kept bombarding without caring about the cost. "I can't hold it anymore." Wan Zhonggang had been paying attention to the strength of the defensive battle array. He saw the light screen of the battle array fading at a speed visible to the naked eye. He knew that the battle array had reached its limit. He thought for a while and made a shocking decision. Instead of waiting for the fire spirit race to break the battle array, he would rather open the battle array. At least this way, he could keep the battle array intact. Since he had made the decision, he immediately gave an order. The order given by the guard token was passed to many cultivators of the Myriad Demon's Ridge in an instant. All the cultivators who received the order were on alert. The blazing sun was less than half of its original size, which meant that half of the fire spirit race warriors who formed the battle array had died. Even the remaining half of the fire spirit race looked dispirited. It seemed that they could not hold on for long. As the blazing sun fell again, the power of several battle arrays on the city wall was activated and bombarded at the blazing sun. As the blazing power approached, the blazing sun's size was reduced again. Just as the blazing sun was about to hit the defensive battle array, the battle array's light screen suddenly disappeared. At the same time, a stream of light soared into the sky. The blood and chi in the body boiled as it collided with the blazing sun. The burly figure in the stream of light was Wan Zhonggang. Just like his name, he walked the path of a body cultivator. At his level of cultivation, the strength of his physique was not inferior to a spirit treasure. This was also the reason why he dared to face the fire spirit race's blazing sun battle array head-on. In an instant, the blazing sun and the stream of light collided. After a moment of silence, boundless power erupted. A huge wave of air spread out at a speed visible to the naked eye. The powerful impact made the cultivators standing on the city wall unsteady. Wan Zhonggang roared as the flesh on his body wriggled. He stood in the air with his hands raised high. Surging spiritual power surged in his palms as he held up the blazing sun that was falling from the sky. At this moment, such a majestic appearance shook the hearts of all the cultivators who saw this scene. Crack! There was a faint sound, and Wan Zhonggang's figure suddenly fell a few meters. His eyes were about to pop out of their socket. The blood and qi in his body boiled, and his skin was glowing red like a cooked shrimp. "Get lost!" As the angry roar sounded, Wan Zhonggang suddenly pushed up and punched out with both fists. The fist shadows condensed from his blood, qi, and spiritual power bombarded the blazing sun one after another. At the same time, inside the blazing sun, the divine ocean realm cultivator of the fire spirit race also activated a secret technique and attacked Wan Zhonggang. When the violent power collided and the light exploded, all the cultivators who were watching the battle could not look at it. Boom! There was the sound of something exploding, as well as the sound of something falling. When the dust settled, everyone looked over, and all of them were moved. The blazing sun had been blown up, and the people who formed the battle array with the divine ocean realm cultivator of the fire spirit race were all dead. Only the divine ocean realm cultivator survived, but at this moment, he was entangled by an enchanting figure and could not escape. Tan Yaonyang made a move. Her cultivation was not as high as Wan Zhonggang, but she was still in the divine ocean realm. With a long sword like water in her hand, she slashed out sword energy and fought with the divine ocean realm cultivator of the fire spirit race endlessly. On the other side, in Gushan City, Wan Zhonggang half-knelt on the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked dispirited and listless. Even his arms were burned at this moment. Obviously, he had suffered a lot in the previous confrontation. His breath was chaotic and his blood and qi were weak. He looked really miserable. His body was on the verge of collapsing, as if anyone could take his life at any moment. Dozens of meters away, in the shadows, a figure that no one saw stood quietly. Her eyes glanced at Wan Zhonggang, and her eyes were as calm as water. If she did not know Wan Zhonggang's background from years of fighting, she would have been deceived by him. However, after years of fighting, they knew each other's background. Others only saw Wan Zhonggang in a sorry state, but she knew that this was mostly a disguise. Wan Zhonggang was indeed injured, but his injury could not be so serious. He was baiting her to make a move. This is even more exciting. 0. Our pigeon must be added to my favorite. Chapter 882. The volcano had erupted, and the fire spirit race had come out in full force. How could Missing Moon Immortal, who was at the divine ocean realm, not notice such a huge commotion? She had chased him all the way here and sneaked into Lonely Mountain City to observe the situation. She knew in her heart that Wan Zhonggang knew that she was here, so he deliberately put on such a predatory posture to arouse her killing intent. For so many years, she had sneaked into this place many times in an attempt to kill Wan Zhonggang, but she had never succeeded. Her most successful attempt was only to severely injure Abbot Wan Zhonggang. The hatred between them that had lasted for decades was difficult to resolve. In the past, when there was not much of a chance, she would attack decisively, but today she did not dare to act rashly. This was because she could sense the hidden danger. A qualified ghost cultivator not only had to be proficient in the art of concealment and array formation, but also had to be extremely sensitive to danger. The first two could make it easier for a ghost cultivator to kill their target, but without the latter, no matter how strong a ghost cultivator was, they would not live for long. She was undoubtedly extremely sensitive to danger. Although she did not know where Tan Tan's sense of danger came from, she understood one thing. If she attacked at this time, she would definitely not have a good ending. Wan Zhonggang ordered the removal of the protective array at the mouth of the acid. Firstly, he wanted to preserve the integrity of the array and minimize the losses as much as possible. Secondly, he wanted to use this opportunity to lure the enemy. Compared to the fire spirit race, who were enemies on the surface, Wan Zhonggang was most vigilant against people like her, who were hiding in the dark and could attack at any time. Wan Zhonggang was cunning to be able to take advantage of the situation, but she was not stupid. After waiting quietly for a moment and not sensing any killing intent, Wan Zhonggang sighed, knowing that his plan had failed. That woman's vigilance was beyond imagination. He did not reveal any flaws, but the other party did not reveal herself and only hid in the dark, waiting for an opportunity. Wan Zhonggang did not have any good ideas about this. He stood up slowly and looked up at the battlefield in the sky. He saw that Tan Yaonyang was locked in a fierce battle with the fire spirit in the divine ocean realm. He lowered his body slightly and rushed into the sky. The ground under his feet cracked, and he instantly joined the battle. With two divine ocean realm cultivators joining forces, the strongest of the fire spirit race naturally fell into a disadvantage. Even so, it was not so easy for Wan Zhonggang and Tan Yaonyang to kill him. Spiritual energy surged, and soul power overflowed in all directions. The three figures crisscrossed in the air, and just the aftershocks alone were already terrifying. Spirit Sea Realm warriors had their own battlefields, and so did others. When the protective formation of Lonely Mountain City disappeared, a large number of fire spirit race took the opportunity to kill their way into the mountain pass. The cultivators of Myriad Devil Ridge did not resist the invading enemies on the city wall because doing so would inevitably cause more casualties on their side. They chose to open up gaps and let the fire spirit race kill their way into the city. While weakening the resistance, it also allowed the cultivators in the city to take advantage of the geographical advantage. The entire Lonely Mountain City was instantly plunged into chaos. Lu Yi was also killing enemies. He cooperated with Ing Wuji and the nearby Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators. Saber light flashed constantly. But as they killed, the two of them realized that something was not quite right. Not only did the number of fire spirits not show any signs of decreasing, there were even more of them. The Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators who cooperated with the two of them were all killed one by one. In less than half a cup of tea's time, there was no one else around the two of them. They could only rely on each other. Brother Nyo, what's going on? Ing Wuji was puzzled. He took the time to look elsewhere. The other positions did not suffer such fierce attacks at all. It was as if the fire spirit race had their eyes on the two of them. Strike 10 did not know what the problem was, but it was definitely related to them entering the underground karst cave. Otherwise, there was no reason for such a thing to happen. But when they entered the underground karst cave, they only collected some fire spirit stones and things that were chiseled by Erhua. They did not encounter anything special. Or was it related to the stone platform under the crater of the solid volcano? The lunar platform had the ability to test the sky, but the most important use should be to open the door to the underground bathing river. At that time, everyone had tried to use the stone platform to test their talent. If not, Lu Yi would not have been able to open the door by chance. He could not figure it out for a while, but it was an indisputable fact that the fire spirit race had their eyes on them. Split up. Lu Yi did not know if the problem was with him, Ing Wuji, or both. But if the problem was with Ing Wuji, then there was no need for him to stay here with Ing Wuji. As soon as he finished speaking, he charged forward, cutting a path out of the crowd of fire spirit race people. Bastard! Ing Wuji cursed. He did not expect Lu Yi to do this. This was simply using him as bait. Fortunately, he had a good foundation and reacted quickly. Seeing that Lu Yi had already charged out, he immediately charged in another direction. During this time, he had encountered countless attacks, causing his spiritual power to become chaotic and his blood to tremble. The problem was not with Ing Wuji, or rather, it was not completely with Ing Wuji. Because even if he separated from Ing Wuji, there were still a large number of fire spirit race people chasing after him. It was certain that everyone who entered the karst cave was targeted. He was like this, and so was Ing Wuji. But just mining some fire spirit stones should not make the fire spirit race hold a grudge. But on second thought, these fire spirit race people seemed to have lost their minds. What they thought and what they did could not be judged by common sense. Just like this battle. If the Divine Sea Realm cultivator of the fire spirit race had any sense, he would not have continued to stay. He would have given the order to retreat long ago. Lu Yi did not know what a normal fire spirit race person was like, but this group of fire spirit race people was definitely abnormal. The city was in chaos. There were many cultivators fighting with the fire spirit race. Lu Ye's figure flitted back and forth. He did not stay in one place for too long to avoid being surrounded. Like this, he killed enemies as he moved. He was able to persevere. In this kind of battlefield, true Lake Realm cultivators undoubtedly had more life-saving abilities. The ones who died the most were still Cloud River Realm cultivators. As for the Spirit Stream Realm cultivators who came here to gain merit and make plans for the future, they could only play a limited role. They could only defend in groups. It was already good enough that they did not cause trouble for others. Flames wrapped around the mountain pan saber. With the support of the double-edged spirit pattern, the thick, black saber became unparalleled in sharpness. It cut open the bodies of one fire spirit race person after another. Suddenly, a great sense of danger rose in his heart, as if a great threat was approaching. When Lu Yi looked up, he saw an aggressive fire spirit race member pouncing towards him. The fire spirit race member's eyes were like torches, his expression was crazed, and the aura on his body was violent. It was a true lake stage fire spirit race member. From the strength of his aura, he was about a true lake realm fire spirit race cultivator. Lu Yi naturally had no intention of fighting with such a great enemy. It hadn't been long since he reached the true lake realm, so he hadn't fought with other true lake realm cultivators yet. He still wasn't sure where his bottom line was, but a fire spirit race 7th order true lake realm cultivator was definitely beyond his ability to deal with. It was not that he had not encountered fire spirit race cultivators before, but they were all led to the true lake realm cultivators of 10,000 Demons Ridge. Those true lake realm cultivators of 10,000 Demons Ridge were also careful. After noticing that he was a true lake realm cultivator, they did not even need to call for help. They took the initiative to block the enemy. This saved him a lot of trouble. When Lu Yi discovered this fire spirit race cultivator, the other party was already in front of him. He threw a punch at Lu Yi. Flames burned on this fist, burning the void. Lu Yi held his saber in front of him, trying to block this blow, but the moment the other party's attack was about to reach him, it suddenly became extremely fierce. Even his originally impressive aura had increased tremendously at this moment. Lu Ye's pupils shrank. This guy was not a 7th order cultivator, he was a 9th order cultivator. These fire spirit race cultivators had indeed lost their minds, but their bone-deep combat experience was still there. Showing weakness to the enemy before suddenly attacking was the most common trick in battle. By the time Lu Yi realized this, it was already too late. The mountain-ascending saber in front of him let out a clanging sound as its thick blade was bent, showing just how powerful this punch was. On Lu Ye's chest, the defensive spirit inscription that had just formed shattered. The violent force passed through the bent saber and hit his chest. In an instant, Lu Ye's blood and chi surged, and he felt his heart stop for a moment. His body flew high into the air like a broken kite. While he was in midair, many nearby fire spirit race cultivators pounced on him with ferocious expressions. Lu Yi hurriedly stabilized his body and slashed out a few saber lights with his mountain-ascending saber, killing the fire spirit race cultivators who wanted to take advantage of the situation. Landing on the ground in a sorry state, a mouthful of blood rushed to his head. In the end, he could not hold back and spat out a mouthful of blood. Just one punch had almost seriously injured him. At the last moment, if he had not used part of the power of the inch vanquishing man one epic H-strike, it would have been hard to say whether he would live or die under this punch. But the crisis had just begun. When he landed, Lu Yi saw the Fire Spirit Clan's expert charging towards him again. Facing such a strong enemy, turning around and fleeing was no longer the best way. Leaving his back to the enemy would only lead to a faster death. But facing such a strong enemy, what were his chances of winning in a head-on confrontation? Although it was a little unreasonable, Lu Yi could only hope that the true Lake Realm cultivators of Myriad Demon Ridge would discover his situation and come to his rescue as soon as possible. But under his perception, he was already surrounded by the Fire Spirit Race cultivators, and there was no trace of the Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators. This trip was a failure. He might have to use that treasure to save his life. Compared to the pain of his injuries, Lu Ye's heart was bleeding. Chapter 883. Inside Lone Mountain City, the battle was like fire and tea. Fire Spirit Tribe members were constantly being killed. Although the Fire Spirit Tribe members that had been sealed for countless years were huge in number, they had lost their minds and were in a mess. No matter how many of them there were, they were like a sheet of loose sand. On the other hand, although the Myriad Demon Ridge had been ambushed in a hurry and Lone Mountain City hadn't been in a war for many years, the Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators' combat skills were still there. The difference between the two sides was obvious. Although the Myriad Demon Ridge had suffered many casualties, how could there be no casualties in a war? As long as the front line remained stable, Lone Mountain City would not be lost, and the number of casualties would be within an acceptable range. Such a great war might not be a bad thing for Lone Mountain City. At the very least, it could serve as a training ground for the cultivators who still had beautiful fantasies about the battlefield to see the cruelty of war. If the Grand Heaven Alliance attacked again, they would definitely be able to do better. After the initial chaos, the Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators stabilized their mentality. The strong would protect the weak, and the weak would try their best to fight the enemy. High up in the sky, Wan Zhang had just joined forces with Tan Yao and the others to fight the Fire Spirit Tribe's Divine Sea Realm cultivators. In the shadows of a section of the city wall, a figure was lying in wait. Although she knew that there was a trap set by the Myriad Demon Ridge, how could a bold person leave so easily? She was still waiting for an opportunity, but as she waited, she discovered something strange. What happened was that, in a battle 31 away from her, a First-Order True Lake Realm cultivator wearing a mask was surrounded by a group of Fire Spirit Race cultivators. The leader of the Fire Spirit Race even revealed the aura of a Ninth-Order True Lake Realm cultivator. Although that person was desperately defending against the enemy, the situation was precarious. It wouldn't be long before he lost his life on the spot. This kid. Why is he here? Even though Thought Moon Immortal was a Divine Sea Realm cultivator, she looked as if she had seen a ghost and her emotions were in chaos. The moment Ing Wuji saw Lu Yi, he determined Lu Ye's identity. In the end, if Lu Yi had not shown him the Myriad Demon Ridge battlefield mark, Ing Wuji would have believed it was him. This face mask will only make it more conspicuous. If Ing Wuji could recognize Lu Yi, how could she, who was a Divine Sea Realm cultivator, be wrong? What's more, by relying on spiritual will, the missing Moon Immortal could clearly understand. Earth Sense Omniscient, that hot aura and spiritual energy fluctuation, plus that pitch-black long blade. Isn't this Lu Yi? Who could it be? But she couldn't figure out why Lu Yi was in Lonely Mountain City. Did he run in with his tongue in his mouth? Not to mention that Lu Yi didn't have the ability to break into such a chaotic scene. Even if they had the ability, the people of the Myriad Demon Ridge were not blind. It was impossible for them not to verify their identities. As for sneaking in, that was even more impossible. If it was so easy to sneak in, the defensive line of the Myriad Devil Ridge would have been riddled with holes. Especially because of what she had done over the years, the defense of the Lonely Mountain Pass was getting better day by day. She was able to sneak in safely and even hide in the shadows, waiting to strike. That was because she was very capable. She could do it, but it did not mean that other ghost cultivators could do it. Moreover, as far as she knew, Lu Yi was a weapon cultivator. So, she never thought that she would see Lu Yi in Lonely Mountain City. Moreover, this kid was fighting openly with the fire spirit race here, putting her in a tight spot. He couldn't deal with a fire spirit race 9th order true lake realm cultivator alone, let alone the other fire spirit race cultivators surrounding him. This kid is going to die. In an instant, thought Moon Immortal made this judgment in her heart. She had guarded Blue Flame Mountain alone for decades and had long cut off all contact with the outside world. In this world, there was only one person who could contact her. If it were someone else, thought Moon Immortal wouldn't care about their life or death. But for her to watch Lu Yi die here. In the encirclement of the fire spirit race cultivators, Lu Yi spat out blood again. The palm of his right hand holding the blade was torn. The difference in cultivation was too great. He was indeed no match for them. If it were an ordinary first-order true lake realm cultivator, he would have died many times over. He could only survive until now with his powerful foundation, but he was already an arrow at the end of its flight. He sighed in his heart. In the end, he still couldn't protect that treasure. As for how to hide his identity after using it, there was no need to think about it. Once he used it, he would definitely attract the attention of everyone. He had to escape from here as soon as possible. Just as he was about to use the treasure, a sharp blade suddenly shot out from the darkness. Feather 3 flashed, circled around Lu Ye's position, and then disappeared. The attacker's exquisite control over his own strength was evident. But at the same time that the blade disappeared, the fire spirit race cultivators surrounding Lu Yi all froze in place. Even the fire spirit race 9th order true lake realm cultivator wasn't spared. While Lu Shirshir was in a daze, the fire spirit race cultivator was cut in half at the waist. From the wound, magma-like blood gushed out and burned in all directions. Who is it? Lu Yi was slightly shocked. He didn't notice any signs of anyone attacking just now. The closest Myriad Demon's Ridge cultivator to him was a few dozen meters away, but this situation clearly showed that someone had secretly helped him. Looking at that blade, it seemed to be a flying sword? To be able to kill so many fire spirit race cultivators in one blow, and even a true lake realm 9th order true lake realm cultivator was so weak, there was no doubt that the attacker was a divine sea realm cultivator. That fire spirit race divine sea realm cultivator, who was trembling in midair with Tan Yaonyang, couldn't possibly save him. Was there a divine sea realm cultivator hiding in Myriad Demon's Ridge? Why was he hiding? What was he trying to do? Almost as soon as this thought appeared in Lu Ye's mind, two powerful auras suddenly rose from within Lonely Mountain City. Like a sleeping dragon waking up, a tyrannical pressure spread in all directions. Immediately after, a fierce battle broke out a few hundred meters away. Spiritual energy surged in all directions, and the seemingly sturdy houses collapsed in an instant. During this time, there was the faint sound of swords ringing out. In the sky, Yuan Zhang, who was fighting the divine ocean realm fire spirit race together with Tan Yaonyang, sensed something. He looked down and saw three figures entangled with each other somewhere below. One of them was very charming and beautiful. Her face was as cold as ice, and the mole under the corner of her eye added a hint of cold charm. He would recognize this figure even if she turned into ashes. Missing Moon Immortal. Fire Spirit Race roared, "Since you're here, don't leave." Just as he'd expected, this woman was hiding in the dark, waiting for an opportunity to attack him. When he'd learned that a large number of fire spirits had surged out of the volcano on Mount Ash and were about to break through, he'd sent a message to the two nearby mountains and invited two helpers. It was to guard against the missing Moon Immortal, and at the same time to set up a trap. He'd pretended to be weak just now, and failed to incite the other party's killing intent. He had no choice but to continue attacking and cooperate with Tan Yaonyang. However, the missing Moon Immortal hadn't shown herself, and there was nothing he could do. Fortunately, he'd kept his composure and had the two helpers hide in the dark to search for the missing Moon Immortal's whereabouts. Now they'd discovered something. However, He didn't know that if he hadn't seen Lu Yi in danger and helped him, the missing moon immortal would never have been exposed. After she attacked, she quickly changed her position, but her opponent still managed to track her. This was because the two Divine Sea Realm cultivators that Fire Spirit race had invited were both ghost cultivators. Only ghost cultivators were most familiar with the ways of ghost cultivators. Using them against the missing moon immortal was the best choice. I'll leave it to you. After Fire Spirit race said this to Tan Yaonyang, he leaned over and rushed down. Although the Divine Sea Realm cultivator from the Fire Spirit race was not weak, he had been seriously injured by the joint attack of Fire Spirit race and Tan Yaonyang. At this moment, Tan Yaonyang alone could deal with him, but it would take some time. On the battlefield below, the missing moon immortal's whereabouts had already been revealed. Her figure was as light as a butterfly. Although she was fighting against two, she was not at a disadvantage. She was even fighting against the two ghost cultivators. Ghost cultivators were good at hiding and attacking. Fighting the enemy head-on was not their strength. Under such a head-on confrontation, the ghost cultivator's abilities would be weakened by at least 10% to 20%. However, the missing moon immortal was not just a ghost cultivator. She was also a sword cultivator. This was the reason why she was so confident that she could suppress one person for several decades. She could hide and attack, and she could also fight the enemy head-on. In the entire 9 provinces, only the missing moon immortal could cultivate 2 sword cultivators to such a level. The sword light around her was dazzling, and the sword energy was like a forest, cutting through the void. If it were any other time, she would definitely teach these 2 Myriad Demons Ridge ghost cultivators how to behave. However, at this time and place, she could not stay for long. When she noticed that Wan Zhonggang had already attacked, she had already flown out with her sword and turned into a sword light to escape into the distance. Wishful thinking, Wan Zhonggang roared. Such a good opportunity like today might not be encountered once in decades. He was not afraid of a thief stealing, but he was afraid of a thief thinking about it. Being attacked by a ghost cultivator and sword cultivator like Missing Moon Immortal, Grand Cultivator Earth had been watching over him for decades. One could imagine how much pressure Wan Zhonggang was under. Therefore, no matter what, he must get rid of this woman today. The qi and blood all over his body burned crazily. Like a meteorite falling from the sky, he smashed into the escape route of Missing Moon Immortal. The dense sword light shattered with a bang, revealing the figure of Missing Moon Immortal wrapped in it. When a muffled groan sounded, another sword light slashed out like a waterfall. The figure falling from the sky was cut out, and blood splattered in midair. In the blink of an eye, Wan Zhonggang stabilized his body again. There was a deep sword wound on his chest that was dripping with blood. In that instant of exchange, whether it was him or Missing Moon Immortal, both of them had walked through the gates of hell. It could be seen how dangerous it was. However, he did not care at all. His body was wrapped in a ball of bloody light as he chased forward. He shouted angrily, "Missing Moon Immortal, you must die today." I said so. Behind him, 2 phantom-like figures drifted and flickered indeterminately as they followed closely behind him. The 3 Divine Sea Realm cultivators of the Myriad Demons Ridge had joined forces to chase after him. This unforeseen event stunned all the cultivators of the Myriad Demons Ridge. Outside the battlefield of Missing Moon Immortal and the 2 ghost cultivators, Ingwuji leaned against a wall with a pale face, shivering like a crane without a nest in the cold winter. Fortunately, he was lucky. If the 3 Divine Sea Realm cultivators were a little closer to him, he would have been killed by the aftershocks. Brother Shen. Shen Zhongqing walked on the road. When he met people he knew, he would greet them or nod to them. But no matter who it was, no one had any extra expression on their faces. It was as if they were indifferent to everything. To this, Shen Zhongqing was already used to it. Because this was the Demon Suppression Department, an organization that maintained the stability of the Great Qin Empire. Their main duty was to kill demons and monsters. Of course, they also had some other side jobs. It could be said that, in the demon suppression department, everyone's hands were stained with a lot of blood. When a person was used to life and death, they would become indifferent to many things. When he first came to this world, Shen Zhongqing was not used to it. But as time passed, he got used to it. The demon suppression department was very big. Those who could stay in the demon suppression department were all powerful experts or people who had the potential to become experts. Shen Zhongqing belonged to the latter. Among them, the demon suppression department was divided into two occupations. One was the guardian, the other was the demon slayer. Anyone who entered the demon suppression department would start from the lowest level, the demon slayer. Then, they would advance step by step and finally have the chance to become a guardian. Shen Zhongqing's previous life was an apprentice demon slayer in the demon suppression department. He was also the lowest level demon slayer. He had the memories of his previous life. He was also very familiar with the environment of the demon suppression department. It did not take long for Shen Zhongqing to stop in front of a pavilion. Different from the other places in the demon suppression department that were filled with killing intent, this pavilion was like a crane in a flock of chickens. In the demon suppression department that was filled with blood, it presented a different kind of tranquility. At this time, the pavilion's door was open. Occasionally, people would enter and leave. Shen Zhongqing only hesitated for a moment before stepping in. Entering the pavilion, the environment suddenly changed. A burst of ink mixed with a faint smell of blood assaulted his senses. His brows instinctively furrowed, but they quickly smoothed out. The smell of blood on everyone in the demon suppression department was almost impossible to wash clean. Chapter 884. Ingwuji had survived a disaster, and so had Lu Yi. At this moment, he stood where he was, looking at the three figures that were quickly disappearing into the distance with a serious expression. Just now, he had been secretly helped by a powerful cultivator and escaped from a life-and-death crisis. He instinctively thought that it was a powerful cultivator from the Myriad Demon's Ridge. But at this moment, how could he not know that it was not someone from the Myriad Demon's Ridge who helped, but the missing Moon Immortal who was hiding in the dark? There was no need to investigate why the Mountain Pass Master was here. It must be because the commotion here was too big that she was attracted here. After learning about the missing Moon Immortal from his second senior sister, Lu Yi knew that she was an extremely powerful ghost cultivator. If a ghost cultivator like her wanted to hide, the Myriad Demon's Ridge might not be able to find her. But at this moment she had been exposed. Thinking about what happened just now, Lu Yi immediately understood that he had dragged her down. The missing Moon Immortal must have recognized him. Seeing that he was in trouble, she secretly helped him. As a result, the Divine Sea Realm cultivators of the Myriad Demon's Ridge saw through her. He turned to look around. The battle here had basically stabilized. The strongest Divine Sea Realm cultivator of the Fire Spirit clan was seriously injured and entangled with Tan Yaonyang. He could not escape easily. The other Fire Spirit clan members had also suffered heavy casualties. It was only a matter of time before the Myriad Demon's Ridge obtained the final victory. It was noisy and chaotic. Almost everyone's attention was attracted by the commotion caused by the Divine Sea Realm cultivators. Seeing that no one was paying attention to him, Lu Yi hurriedly activated the concealment spirit tattoo and quickly rushed out of the city. The missing Moon Immortal was indeed powerful, but she was fighting 1 against 3. She might not have a good ending. He had to follow and see the situation. Although the battle of the Divine Sea Realm was too far away for him, he had dragged the missing Moon Immortal down. He could not leave her alone. Normally, it was not easy to enter and leave the Lone Mountain Pass. But now that the protective array was closed, the city was in chaos. Who would have thought that a Grand Heaven Alliance cultivator would secretly leave? Everything went smoothly. Only when he was far away from the noisy battlefield did Lu Yi remove the concealment spirit tattoo. A pair of wings spread out behind him, and he turned into a flame, chasing after the traces of the battle. Judging from the direction that the Thought Moon Immortal was fleeing towards, she should be heading towards the Vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass. However, the two mountain passes were thousands of miles apart. Even if a Divine Sea Realm cultivator were to fly over, it would still take some time. Furthermore, there was no one at Vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass. Even if Thought Moon Immortal returned to Vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass, she would not have any helpers. In such a situation, her best choice was to flee to the Hautian Alliance's pass that was close to the Vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass. That was the only way she could get help from the Divine Sea Realm warriors of the Hautian Alliance. But Lu Yi did not know why she did not do so. It was very likely that she did not have any friendly relations with her neighbors, or that the enemy had sealed off her escape route, forcing her to flee to the Ash Flame Mountain Pass. A few dozen kilometers ahead, intense spiritual energy fluctuations came from that direction, and the powerful aftershocks swept out in all directions like ripples. Lu Ye's heart sank. What he was worried about still happened. Thought Moon Immortal did not manage to escape. Logically speaking, since she was a sword cultivator, her speed was naturally unparalleled. It was impossible for her to not be able to escape. Now that she had been caught, it meant that the enemy must have activated some kind of secret technique. Thinking back to the scene of Wan Zhonggang being chased by a ball of bloody light, Lu Yi realized that he had underestimated this guy's determination to kill Thought Moon Immortal. That ball of bloody light wrapped around Wan Zhonggang was undoubtedly some kind of secret technique that could increase one's speed. Previously, he had seen Ying Wuji activate a similar secret technique in the Taimang Mountains, but at that time, Ying Wuji had used it to escape. With a heavy heart, he approached the battlefield, carefully concealing his presence and hiding his tracks. When he looked up, he saw 4 figures engaged in a fierce battle in the sky. A sea of swords stood like clouds and mist, forming a majestic sword array. Flying swords shuttled back and forth. In the sea of swords, Thought Moon Immortal's figure stood proudly. The strong Wan Zhonggang and the other 2 ghost cultivators attacked continuously, but were forced back by the sharp flying swords. The 3 Divine Sea Realm cultivators, no matter who it was, were all covered in blood. Clearly, they had been injured by the flying swords. Lu Yi could not tell what kind of sword array Thought Moon Immortal had set up, but such a powerful sword array must have consumed a lot of energy. Moreover, there were traces of blood at the corner of Thought Moon Immortal's mouth. She must have been injured. The situation did not seem good. Thought Moon Immortal's current state was clearly one of defense. It would not be easy for the enemy to break through the defense of the sword array. However, if she did not have the protection of the sword array, she would probably be doomed. In such a situation, the enemy only needed to slowly exhaust her strength. Sooner or later, the sword array would collapse, and then it would be her death. He had to think of a way. Not to mention that Thought Moon Immortal was now his immediate superior. She had only been exposed because she had saved him. Lu Yi could not watch her go to the end of the road. Before Thought Moon Immortal saved him, she must have known the consequences, but she still did it. The battle in the sky was still intense. Lu Yi no longer hesitated. He took out Hu Po from his spirit beast pouch and summoned Yi. At the same time, he raised his hands and pressed them on their bodies. His spirit energy surged, and a spirit inscription was constructed on the spirit and tiger. At the mouth of the volcano in Ash Flame Mountain, Lu Yi finally lit up the spirit inscription he had been longing for months. In the end, he found that it was not the void spirit inscription he had been looking forward to, but a somewhat useless spirit inscription. Simulated pressure. This spirit inscription did not have any substantial effect. It could only be used to simulate a powerful pressure. The strength of the pressure depended on how much spirit energy was injected into it. This spirit inscription could not bring about an increase in Lu Ye's strength. Coupled with the fact that his expectations had failed, he only felt that this spirit inscription was extremely useless. However, in the current situation, it was unrealistic to fight the enemy head-on. The difference in strength was obvious. If he, a first-order true Lake Realm cultivator, wanted to intervene in a battle between Divine Sea Realm cultivators, he might not even have a corpse left. Whether or not he could repel the enemy really depended on whether this spirit inscription had any effect. Lu Yi had never used this spirit inscription before, so no one knew what kind of effect it would have. At this moment, he could only try everything he could. Lu Yi briefly explained to Yi and Hu Po, letting them understand the purpose of this spirit inscription. The spirit and tiger immediately understood Lu Yi's plan. After spending so much time together, they already had a tacit understanding of each other. Hu Po immediately turned around and ran in a certain direction. Yi also dove into the ground and followed closely behind Hu Po. He couldn't use the simulated pressure from this position. If he was too close, it would be easy for him to be seen through. Only by running further away, and making it impossible for the enemy to see what was real and what was false could this spirit inscription display its miraculous effect. After Hu Po and Yi left, Lu Yi continued to move forward quietly. Normally, if he, a true Lake Realm cultivator, wanted to approach a Divine Sea Realm cultivator, his whereabouts would have been exposed. However, at this moment the four people in the sky were fighting fiercely. Who would have the extra energy to pay attention to their surroundings? This gave him an opportunity to take advantage of. At this moment, a roar came from the sky. "I'll charge, you two look for an opportunity." However, Wan Zhonggang was getting impatient. He had no choice but to be impatient. Even though he knew that Nian Yuxian's fate would be sealed if he continued to wear her down, the longer the delay, the more trouble there would be. If Nian Yuxian sent a message to ask for help, the experts of the Grand Heaven Alliance would quickly rush over. This time, he paid a huge price to trap this woman here. If he didn't take this opportunity to kill her, he wouldn't have such a good opportunity in the future. Therefore, someone had to be responsible for breaking Thought Moon Immortal's sword array. He was a physique cultivator and the leader of this battle. Naturally, he was the best candidate. "Be careful," a myriad Devil Ridge ghost cultivator warned. Wan Zhonggang roared furiously. His entire body's blood seemed to be on fire as he charged towards the sword array. The sound of the air being pierced was endless. The sword radiance was cold and sharp. Even a Divine Sea Realm physique cultivator like Wan Zhonggang couldn't block the killing power of a sword cultivator. When he charged towards the sword array, his entire body was covered in blood and wounds. He gritted his teeth and didn't retreat. His entire body was like a huge sun as he charged into the sword array. The sword array's power exploded, slicing his flesh and blood. However, as he approached, the orderly sword radiance also became chaotic. How could the two ghost cultivators miss such a good opportunity? They attacked from the left and right. A cold glint flashed in the eyes of Nian Yu Immortal, who was in charge of the sword formation. She did not care about the two ghost cultivators who were attacking her. She used all her strength, and the boundless sword light suddenly converged. She wanted to perish together with Wan Zhonggang. Seeing her so determined, Wan Zhonggang's eyelids couldn't help but twitch. One of the two ghost cultivators who were attacking Thought Moon Immortal at the same time couldn't help but rush to Wan Zhonggang's side and resist the power of this sword radiance together with him. At this moment, the shocking sword radiance split into two. "Not good!" Wan Zhonggang shouted. He saw through Thought Moon Immortal's plan. Perishing together with him was just an illusion. Her target was only one of the ghost cultivators. When the sword radiance fell, the four figures were all in a sorry state. Wan Zhonggang and the ghost cultivator beside him resisted the power of the sword radiance. Their bodies, which were already riddled with scars, became even more miserable. The ghost cultivator beside him also groaned. As for the other ghost cultivator, he was almost split into two and died on the spot. Although he barely escaped, he was also covered in cold sweat. He was seriously injured at that time. With her own strength, she injured 3 divine sea realm cultivators from Myriad Demon's Ridge. The strength of Thought Moon Immortal was obvious. However, this was the only way. After that sword radiance, Thought Moon Immortal's clothes were dyed red with blood. Her body fell from the sky like a kite with a broken string. Her face was as pale as paper. Die! Wan Zhonggeng roared. He didn't care about his serious injuries and rushed towards Thought Moon Immortal. Before he arrived, he had already punched out. The shadow of a fist formed by the mixture of spiritual power and chi and blood broke through the air. Faced with such a punch, Thought Moon Immortal sensed the danger, but she didn't have the strength to resist. Seeing that he was about to get rid of this great enemy that had been pestering him for decades, Wan Zhonggeng suddenly caught a glimpse of a flaming figure from the corner of his eyes. He scooped up Thought Moon Immortal's body and spread out a pair of fiery red wings on his back. He immediately fled into the distance. The shadow of the fist hit empty air, but the aftermath of the explosion hit the figure that suddenly appeared like a violent storm, causing him to be thrown back and forth. Wan Zhonggeng was so angry that he laughed. Because this guy who suddenly appeared was only a first-order True Lake Realm cultivator. Mobile users, please browse. Chapter 885. As her consciousness drifted, an indistinct face appeared in Thought Moon Immortal's blurred vision. Although she couldn't see it clearly no matter how hard she tried, the resolute expression on his face perfectly matched the scene in her memory. In a trance, she seemed to have returned to several decades ago. At that time, someone had rescued her when she was in danger and held her in his arms. That moment of warmth brought about a yearning that she hadn't forgotten even after several decades. She gently reached out a hand and stroked that indistinct face. It was as if she had really returned to several decades ago. Wah! A mouthful of blood suddenly spurted out and covered her beautiful face with warm blood. Thought Moon Immortal's pupils suddenly shrank. Her dream was interrupted several decades ago. After that person saved her, he went on a killing spree. Enemies that she couldn't contend against were as weak as paper in front of him, while powerful enough to suppress an era. Several decades later, the person who saved her from a similar crisis was only a first-order True Lake Realm cultivator. In her other hand, she suddenly tightened her grip on the sword hilt. She was about to circulate her spirit energy, but a heart-wrenching pain came from all over her body. She couldn't help but let out a soft groan as half of the strength she had just mustered dissipated. "You're courting death," Wan Zhonggeng roared and punched out again. However, the power of this punch was undoubtedly much weaker than the previous one. He had gathered his strength for the previous punch, but this one was a hasty one. Furthermore, Thought Moon Immortal's injuries were heavy, but he was also heavily injured. The dense sword array wasn't easy to break through. However, it was enough. In his perception, Thought Moon Immortal had almost lost the ability to resist. As for this first-order True Lake Realm cultivator who had jumped out of nowhere, he definitely couldn't block his attack. Even if it was a hasty attack, it was still a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator. How could a True Lake Realm cultivator block it? However, in the next moment, Wan Zhonggeng saw an unforgettable scene. He seemed to have sensed the danger behind him and hurriedly turned around. He held the long saber in front of him and madly poured his spirit energy into the saber. The pitch-black Pan Mountain blade began to burn. In the next instant, the fiery red spirit energy that enveloped the Pan Mountain blade spread out in all directions as if it had a life of its own. It twisted and transformed into countless yin and yang energies that quickly merged with each other. In the blink of an eye, with the Pan Shan blade as the center, a circular spirit pattern had already formed. That spirit pattern was even more complicated than the void. He had spent quite some time at the mouth of Mount Ash Flames volcano. Other than the simulated power, he had activated 6 other spirit inscriptions. All of them required dozens of tree leaves to carry. It could be said that if he didn't open for 3 years, he would be able to eat for 3 years. He had carefully investigated the specific effects of these 7 spirit inscriptions, but because he had been with Ing Wu Ji and the others during this time, he had not tested them himself. However, at this moment, he could only use one of the spiritual inscriptions, Gecko. This was the core spiritual pattern of the countermeasure formation, which could reflect the enemy's attack to a certain extent. It was especially effective against attacks that left one's body. Using it as a spiritual pattern alone would not be as effective as the countermeasure formation, but it was still a method for the weak to defeat the strong. Moreover, in order to increase the stability of the spiritual pattern, he had used the Pan Mountain Blade as a medium to execute Gecko. It should not shatter with just a touch. The fist formed by the mixture of chi, blood, and spirit energy slammed into the spiritual pattern, causing a violent and irresistible force to sweep over. His heart was in his throat as he frantically poured his spirit energy into Gecko to maintain its stability. The Pan Mountain Blade let out a painful sound. Fortunately, he had already found Master Yu to upgrade the Pan Mountain Blade to the level of a magic tool. Otherwise, the Pan Mountain Blade would have shattered under this attack. He felt as if he was standing in front of a tsunami that could destroy everything. Under his nervous gaze, the Gecko did not shatter immediately. This made him feel at ease. The spirit tattoos that could only be carried by dozens of leaves were indeed extraordinary. Moreover, he could clearly sense that when the 10,000 zhang hard attack came, the spirit tattoos were quickly activated. The attack that was reflected back offset a part of the power of the fist shadows. In a short instant it felt as if a year had passed. The Gecko lunar spirit pattern shattered. The difference in strength was too great. Although the Gecko lunar spirit pattern had a miraculous effect, it could not really turn danger into safety. Fortunately, he had already foreseen this scene and hurriedly constructed defensive spiritual patterns in front of him. In the blink of an eye, 3 layers of defensive spiritual patterns were spread out. The defensive spiritual patterns could not block the attack of Gecko lunar spirit pattern. When the defensive spiritual patterns shattered, he was about to use his last life-saving method when a long sword suddenly emitted light and shattered the powerful fist's shadow. He hurriedly looked down and saw that Nian Yuxian's eyes were blurred. She looked like she was about to faint from her heavy injuries. The attack just now was just her instinctive counterattack. This would not do. Although he still had life-saving methods, he could only protect himself. Moreover, his speed was far inferior to a divine sea realm cultivator. Nian Yuxian would definitely die. There was still no movement from Yi and Hu Pu. The time was too short. The two of them should not have reached the designated location yet. It was unrealistic to expect them to come to the rescue. This time, he really had to make a Hail Mary effort. "Sir, don't block it." Seeing that Gecko lunar spirit pattern was about to attack again, he made up his mind and grabbed one of Nian Yuxian's hand. In the next instant their fingers interlocked. The Pan Mountain saber pierced out with a sharp blade light. The groggy Nian Yuxian did not know what to do at all. However, her powerful senses could feel the urgency and sincerity in his heart. Therefore, although she instinctively rejected it, she did not stop it. There was a pain on the back of his hand. The Pan Mountain saber pierced through their interlocked hands. Fresh blood gushed out and mixed together. With a thought, the fresh blood turned into a bloody light. As if it had a mind of its own, it climbed onto the back of their hands and quickly turned into a small spiritual pattern. When the spiritual pattern was combined, it looked almost the same as the pattern he had obtained from his master. They both looked like a pair of wings. However, at this moment, this pair of wings appeared on the back of their hand. The wings on the back of his hand were on the left. The wings on Nian Yuxian's hand were on the right. Flying rainbow phoenixes. There were many types of spiritual patterns. Other than ordinary spiritual patterns like defense and sharpness, there were also divine patterns like charm that needed to be activated with spiritual sense. Strictly speaking, flying rainbow phoenixes should belong to the blood pattern of spiritual patterns because it needed to be activated with fresh blood. The blood-stained spiritual pattern that he had used several times before could also be considered a type of blood pattern. There was another spiritual pattern that corresponded to flying rainbow phoenixes. Spiritual connection. Flying rainbow phoenixes was a blood pattern, and spiritual connection was a divine pattern. Neither of them were ordinary spiritual patterns. They were also 2 of the 7 new spiritual patterns that had been activated this time. They could be used alone or at the same time. They could be considered the 2 most unique spiritual patterns obtained from the talent tree. They seemed to be able to be combined perfectly. Spiritual connection could allow 2 people to communicate with each other. The requirement to use it was even stricter than flying rainbow phoenixes. It required absolute trust in each other because once it was successfully used, there would be no secrets between them. If spiritual connection could allow 2 people to communicate with each other, then flying rainbow phoenixes targeted the physical body. 2 people who were branded with spiritual patterns shared everything about their physical bodies. The moment this spiritual pattern was successfully constructed, he could clearly feel the terrifying foundation of the woman in his arms. He could also deeply feel the severity of her injuries. Her injuries were more serious than they seemed on the surface. In an instant, he felt a tightness in his chest and shortness of breath. His already injured body suddenly became much more serious. Suddenly, a strong wind blew. It was Wan Zhonggang, who saw that he couldn't kill Nian Yuxian, so he pounced forward again and threw a punch at a close distance. Wan Zhonggang raised his saber and slashed down. Under this attack, Wan Zhonggang looked as if he had seen a ghost because this attack wasn't something that a first-order true Lake Realm cultivator could produce. The moment the saber and fist collided, Wan Zhonggang was forced back. The mountain coiling saber also let out a crisp sound. This long saber that had been with him since he was a third-order spirit stream realm cultivator actually had several cracks visible to the naked eye. The saber trembled. If there was a next time, the mountain coiling saber would be completely shattered. Not only that, his saber-wielding right arm was also torn and blood spurted out. Borrowing the power of the flight of the colored phoenixes, he slashed out an attack that didn't belong to his cultivation. His physical body couldn't withstand it, so he naturally had to pay a certain price. Wan Zhonggang was forced back, but another ghost cultivator attacked from the side. Among the 2 ghost cultivators, one of them was severely injured by Nian Yuxian and almost lost the ability to fight. However, the other ghost cultivator still had the strength to fight. Holding the saber in his hand, his cold gaze locked onto the erratic figure of the ghost cultivator. He endured all kinds of discomfort and poured his spirit energy into the mountain coiling saber. The pitch-black saber hummed, as if it was bidding farewell to its owner. "I'll do it!" Suddenly, a cold voice sounded in his ear. Looking down, he happened to meet Nian Yuxian's clear eyes. The brilliance in her eyes was extremely complicated, because in just a short period of time, she experienced something that even a spirit sea realm cultivator like her couldn't understand. She knew that she was proficient in spirit runes. But in her knowledge, no matter how proficient she was in spirit runes, she was only a true Lake Realm cultivator. How profound could the spirit runes she displayed be? Until the appearance of the flight of the colored phoenixes. The moment the spirit rune was successfully drawn, she could clearly feel her injuries. She also felt an unimaginable amount of vitality in her body. She didn't dare to imagine that a first-order true Lake Realm cultivator could have such a huge amount of vitality in her body. In her perception, it was as if there was a sun hidden in her body. The light and heat from the sun were the flow of vitality. At this moment, under the effect of the flight of the colored phoenixes, The huge amount of vitality was endlessly flowing into her body. She, who was originally in a daze, regained some strength. Chapter 886. The trip to the soaring dragon realm had allowed Lu Yi to obtain the broken source of a world and come back from the dead. What he possessed was not just the ability to imprint on the source. He also possessed an unimaginably large amount of vitality. Hua Si had once felt the magnificence of this vitality. As a wood element medical cultivator, Hua Si was extremely sensitive to vitality. At that time, she had sensed that the vitality in Lu Ye's body was not inferior to that of a spirit sea realm cultivator. In fact, it was even stronger. Even if it was broken, it was still the source of a world. How could an individual cultivator compare to it? However, most of the vitality was hidden in the source and was not obvious. What Hua Si sensed was only a part of it. Compared to the whole, it was insignificant. If this insignificant part was comparable to a spirit sea realm cultivator, one could imagine how terrifying the vitality was. At this moment, under the support of the flying colored phoenixes, the terrifying vitality flowed continuously from Lu Ye's body into the Thought Moon Immortal's body. She, who had fallen unconscious due to her heavy injuries, regained consciousness. Not only that, even the pain on her body was not as obvious. She was shocked. She really could not understand how Lu Yi, a first-order true lake realm cultivator, could possess such a large amount of vitality. Even if he was from the monster race, he should not have such vitality. The current situation did not allow her to think too much. After speaking softly, her eyes turned cold again. She raised her sword and waved it. A dense sword light flashed. The scene looked a little strange. Lu Yi held the almost broken mountain coiling saber in one hand, while his other hand went through the Thought Moon Immortal's waist and grabbed her jade hand. At the same time, he pulled her in front of him. The Thought Moon Immortal waved her sword and slashed repeatedly. The sword light crisscrossed as she fought with the two enemies. Feeling the power of a battle between spirit sea realm cultivators at such a close distance, Lu Ye's chest was so tight that he could barely breathe. It was also because he had taken half of the damage for the Thought Moon Immortal. At this moment, although he could display power that did not belong to him, his realm was too low. It was really difficult for him to intervene. In such a battle, he simply let go of his body and mind and let the Thought Moon Immortal do whatever she wanted. In an instant, he felt his body drift and was out of control. "It's you." In the midst of the fierce battle, Wan Zhonggang finally realized where the problem was, and his gaze suddenly turned to Lu Yi. Just now, Thought Moon Immortal had clearly looked like she was about to die, so there was no reason for her to suddenly be so lively. And the root of all the changes was that Lu Yi had suddenly raised her knife and pierced through their interlocked hands. On the back of their hands, the spirit tattoos carved with fresh blood were so eye-catching. Wan Zhonggang didn't recognize Lu Yi. He just saw the problem. As soon as these words fell, Lu Yi suddenly let out a muffled groan as he felt a sharp pain in his head. It was as if someone had taken a sledgehammer and smashed it on his head. In an instant, he felt like he was seeing stars, unable to see anything, and even his consciousness became blurry. Divine Soul Attack. Of the 4 realms of cultivators, the increase in each realm was a leap in strength. However, the first 3 realms were only a change in spiritual power. Only when one reached the Spirit Sea realm would they be able to develop spiritual will, which was another fundamental change in a cultivator. A 9th-order Cloud River realm cultivator might have the chance to kill a 1st-order True Lake realm cultivator, but a 9th-order Cloud River realm cultivator would never have the ability to kill a Spirit Sea realm cultivator. Because, relatively speaking, it was too easy for a Spirit Sea realm cultivator to kill a True Lake realm cultivator. As long as one used their spiritual will to attack, a True Lake realm cultivator would be unable to defend. Defense. Everyone was born with their soul, but spiritual will was unique to the Spirit Sea realm. Only when a cultivator cultivated to this level could they develop their own spiritual will. Even in the spirit sea realm, Wan Zhonggang was worthy of being called a master. When he used his spiritual will to attack Lu Yi couldn't defend against it at all, nor could he resist. Block. The moment Lu Yi let out a muffled groan, Wan Zhonggang also let out a muffled groan. Using his spiritual will to bully the weak, of course, Lu Yi couldn't resist, but Thought Moon Immortal seized the opportunity and similarly used her spiritual will to attack him. Her spiritual will severely injured him. But then, Thought Moon Immortal's expression changed. Because she clearly felt that Lu Ye's consciousness behind her was becoming slack, and the big hand that was tightly clasping her 5 fingers was showing signs of loosening. Thought Moon Immortal hurriedly tightened her grip, not letting him escape. As if some taboo had been touched, Thought Moon Immortal's charming face became even more ferocious. She gritted her teeth and roared, "I want you to die." She stood in front of her sword and spat a mouthful of blood on it. The long sword suddenly transformed into endless sword shadows that spread out layer by layer. Come. She was obviously going to go all out. Then let's see who dies first. Although Wan Zhonggang's spiritual will was damaged and he was in so much pain that he was about to go crazy, he didn't retreat at all because he knew that this was the closest he could get to killing Thought Moon Immortal. If he missed this opportunity, it would be very difficult for him to get another one. This time, both of them were really angry. Seeing this, Wan Zhonggang's ghost cultivator companion could only give up his life to accompany them, cursing in his heart that these two were really crazy. However, at this moment, a terrifying pressure suddenly approached from the distance. And it wasn't just one, but two. Wan Zhonggang's expression changed as he quickly raised his head to look in that direction. "Run!" the ghost cultivator hurriedly shouted. This pressure was undoubtedly something that could only be displayed by a spirit sea realm cultivator. Judging from the strength of this pressure, the two that came were about the 2nd or 3rd order spirit sea realm. Moreover, looking at the direction they were coming from, they were clearly the reinforcements from Grand Heaven Alliance. The cultivation of the newcomers wasn't high, but they definitely had the ability to change the situation of this battle. At this point in the battle, one of them was seriously injured to the point that he almost lost the ability to move, while the other 3 were also seriously injured. If they didn't leave now, once the 2 Spirit Sea Realm cultivators from Grand Heaven Alliance arrived, they wouldn't be able to leave even if they wanted to. Wan Zhonggang's expression was ferocious, but he still gritted his teeth and left in the end. As soon as he finished speaking, the ghost cultivator immediately turned around and fled quickly. Before he left, he didn't forget to bring along his seriously injured companion. Wan Zhonggang blocked the attack of Thought Moon Immortal's boundless sword shadows before dragging his battered body far away. Thought Moon Immortal didn't choose to chase after him because the situation of the reinforcements was a little strange. Wan Zhonggang thought it was the reinforcements from Grand Heaven Alliance that she had asked for help, so he retreated in a hurry. However, in fact, she hadn't sent a message to anyone else from the beginning to the end. It was still uncertain whether the reinforcements were friends or foes. After watching Wan Zhonggang leave, Thought Moon Immortal turned around and looked back. A moment later, her eyes were filled with surprise because the reinforcements weren't of the Spirit Sea Realm, but Yi and Hu Po. At this moment, Yi and Hu Po were both surging with spiritual energy. Their bodies were filled with the might of the Spirit Sea Realm. The Spirit and the Tiger had almost pushed their power to the limit. They looked exhausted and obviously couldn't hold on for much longer. What kind of ability was this? Thought Moon Immortal was at a loss. She was certain that Yi and Hu Po couldn't possibly be of the Spirit Sea Realm. After all, they had been together for a few days not too long ago. She was quite familiar with the Spirit and the Tiger. It didn't make sense that their strength would increase so much in just a few days. But how could they explain the might of the Divine Sea Realm? Just as Thought Moon Immortal was puzzled, Yi and Hu Po saw the situation over here from afar. When they saw only Thought Moon Immortal and Lu Ye's figures, they were overjoyed. They knew that the enemy had been scared away. However, just as they let out a sigh of relief, they became nervous again. It was because Lu Ye's situation clearly wasn't right. Yi stopped pouring spiritual energy into the fake might and her aura returned to its original state. She rushed forward and asked anxiously, "Sister Xian, what's wrong with Lu Yi?" Hupo also widened his tiger eyes and sized her up suspiciously. What was going on? What had happened before? Why was Master in such an ambiguous position with this icy woman? If you want to fight, then fight. What's with hugging and hugging? What puzzled Hupo even more was that this icy woman didn't seem to be too repulsed. Hupo's strange gaze caused Thought Moon Immortal to snap out of her daze. However, she didn't immediately let go of Lu Ye's hand because of the hotel. She didn't know if Wan Zhonggang and the others would come back to attack. At this moment, she still needed to borrow the enormous vitality in Lu Ye's body. "Let's go back first," Thought Moon Immortal said. She wrapped Yi and Hupo in her spiritual energy and flew towards Vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass with Lu Yi. From afar, it looked like she was carrying Lu Yi on her back. The flying speed of a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator was undoubtedly extremely fast. They arrived at Vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass in just half an hour. In the bamboo house, Thought Moon Immortal settled Lu Yi down. Only then did she let go of his hand and place it on his chest, examining him with rapt attention. Yi and Hupa stood nervously by the bed, holding their breaths as they waited. Every change in Thought Moon Immortal's expression could cause the spirit and tiger's mood to fluctuate. A moment later, Thought Moon Immortal stopped. "Sister Xian, is Lu Yi all right?" Yi hurriedly asked. Thought Moon Immortal was silent for a moment before saying, "Although his physical body is seriously injured, his vitality is enormous. Even if we ignore it, he'll be fine after a few days of recuperation. What's troublesome is the injury to his soul." Even for a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator, an injury to their soul was extremely troublesome, let alone those below the Spirit Sea Realm. Wan Zhonggang, a guy who didn't care about martial ethics, brazenly attacked Lu Yi with his spiritual sense after realizing that the change in the battle was due to Lu Ye's interference. Lu Yi couldn't guard against it at all, which was also the reason why he fell into a coma. "You two stay here and guard him. If there are any changes, send me a message with the guard token. I'll go find him something to heal his injuries." "Oh, okay." Yi nodded, somewhat at a loss. But then she suddenly realized, "Sister Xian, you're looking for treasures that can heal the soul." Thought Moon Immortal nodded. "This kind of thing is extremely rare. I may not be able to find it. I've already sent a message to Shui Yuan. She should be on her way." Yi stepped forward and took Lu Ye's storage bag. She opened the bag and rummaged through it. Soon, she held a bottle in her hand. "This is useful, right?" Thought Moon Immortal raised her hand and the bottle was immediately sucked into her hand. She opened the bottle and sniffed it gently. "Soul-cleansing water." Yi nodded. Where did he get so much soul-cleansing water? Thought Moon Immortal couldn't understand. This thing was a treasure that even Spirit Sea Realm cultivators coveted. It couldn't be bought in the Tianji treasury. Occasionally, cultivators would come across it by chance. They all treated it as a precious treasure and kept it carefully. She had never heard of anyone obtaining so much soul-cleansing water at once. Chapter 887. Such a bottle of soul-cleansing water had at least 20 to 30 drops. Such a divine item could be said to be priceless. And this was only half a bottle. Suddenly, Thought Moon Immortal realized something. She raised her head and asked, "He used this before?" He nodded. Not only did he use it before, but he used it frequently. This thing was extremely precious to others, but it was nothing to Lu Yi. No wonder. Thought Moon Immortal let out a long breath. On the way back, there was something she didn't understand. In his anger, Wan Zhonggang used a soul attack on Lu Yi. Logically speaking, with such a huge difference in cultivation, Lu Yi couldn't resist at all. His ending wouldn't be as simple as fainting. The biggest possibility was that his soul would be shattered and he would die on the spot. But in fact, Lu Yi didn't die, he just fainted. From this, it could be inferred that Lu Ye's soul was stronger than ordinary true lake realm cultivators. At this moment, thought Moon Immortal understood the reason. He used soul-cleansing water before. This was also the reason why Lu Ye's soul was so strong. And it shouldn't be just once. Her nervous mood immediately relaxed. In Lu Ye's current situation, the most troublesome thing was the injury to his soul. Now that he had soul-cleansing water, the problem could be easily solved. In addition, his soul was strong to begin with, so the injury shouldn't be as serious as imagined. She raised her hand and a drop of soul-cleansing water wrapped in spirit energy was drawn out. Thought Moon Immortal reached out and pinched open Lu Ye's mouth, putting the drop of soul-cleansing water into his mouth. She suddenly staggered. Just now, his mind had been so tense that he had completely forgotten about his injuries. Now that his mind was relaxed, endless exhaustion and pain attacked him at the same time. He hurried forward to support her. "Sister Xian, you rest. I'll take care of Lu Yi." Thought Moon Immortal nodded lightly. "Then I'll leave it to you." She then walked to the side and sat down cross-legged. She took out a healing pill from her storage space and swallowed it. She didn't leave because she had to guard against the counterattack of Wan Mo Ridge, even though the possibility wasn't high. At night, there was a sudden sound of something breaking through the air. He was startled and Hoopa growled. Thought Moon Immortal opened her eyes. "No need to be nervous, your second senior sister is here." As soon as he finished speaking, a familiar figure rushed in from the window. Who else could it be but Shui Yuan? Second senior sister. He hurriedly went up to her. "How is the situation?" Shui Yuan didn't even greet Nian Yuxian as she hurriedly walked to the bedside to check on Lu Ye's situation. Yi stood at the side and explained Yi Shi's situation in a low voice. After a careful examination, Shui Yuan's grave expression finally relaxed. "She's fine now. She should be able to wake up soon." Hearing her say this, Yi was completely relieved. Yi wasn't sure how brilliant Shui Yuan's medical skills were, but in her heart, her second senior sister's medical skills were the best in this world. Since she said it was fine, then it really was fine. Shui Yuan stood up, turned her head, and coldly looked at Thought Moon Immortal who was sitting cross-legged in the corner, and said word by word, "Give me an explanation." It was because there weren't too many battles here that Shui Yuan specially sent a message to Moon Immortal, asking her to go to Vast Sky City to get him. Who would have thought that after not seeing him for a few days, her junior brother would be seriously injured and unconscious? If she had known earlier, why would she have sent little junior brother here? Thought Moon Immortal lowered her head, her hair falling in front of her chest, and did not say a word. Yi saw that the situation was not right and hurriedly said, "Second senior sister, it has nothing to do with Sister Immortal." She gave him a brief account of what had transpired. Hearing this, Shui Yuan was both angry and amused. She turned to look at Lu Yi who was lying on the bed and gritted her teeth. At such a young age, he didn't learn any good things, and yet he knew how to be a hero saving a beauty. He even almost lost his life. Speaking of which, Han's bird nature was Thought Moon Immortal. In a battle of the Spirit Sea realm, ordinary true lake realm cultivators would stay as far away as possible. Yet, Lu Yi actually dared to interfere. What was even more bizarre was that he actually managed to save her. There were many things that Yi didn't say clearly. In the past, she was somewhat late. For example, the X-incident in Lu Ye's country. This was Lu Ye's biggest secret. Other than Lu Yi himself, only she knew about it. There were also some things that she wasn't too clear about, such as the flying rainbow phoenix spiritual pattern. Second senior sister, Lu Yi actually has a life-saving method. Seeing that Shui Yuan was still angry, Yi hurriedly explained. He also has a golden body command token on him. After returning from the Wushuang continent, the special reward bestowed by the heavens was that Lu Yi could choose any treasure from the War Merit Pavilion. Lu Yi didn't choose anything else but the Golden Body Command Token. This thing was worth 200,000 battle merits in the War Merit Pavilion. Moreover, Lu Yi had experience using the Golden Body Command Token before, so he knew that this thing was a true life-saving treasure. Tomato this time, he almost activated it a few times, but it was interrupted at the crucial moment. Golden Body Command Token. Shui Yuan couldn't help but be moved. No wonder he's so daring. But the Golden Body Command Token isn't foolproof. The Golden Body's protection is impregnable. Spirit Sea Realm cultivators can't break the Golden Body, but they can trap him. When the Golden Body disappears, he'll still die. Yi nodded her head like a chick pecking rice. I know, I'll keep an eye on him next time. Shui Yuan's expression changed slightly. She knew that her reaction was a bit too extreme. A cultivator's cultivation path couldn't be smooth. If it was like that, they wouldn't achieve much. She was just angry. Her junior brother had only been here for a short time. He had already encountered such a crisis in the capital, so she was wondering if she should transfer her junior brother to another mountain pass. However, if she really did that, there was no guarantee that he would be targeted by someone who hated the Blue Blood sect. It would be safer to leave him with Thought Moon Immortal. Without saying anything else, she first treated Lu Ye's injuries. She then walked in front of Thought Moon Immortal and looked at her in annoyance. You're always like this. When people scold you, don't you know how to refute? I didn't take good care of him, Thought Moon Immortal replied in a low voice. Shui Yuan sighed and sat in front of her, examining her injuries. She was soon surprised because she could sense Lu Ye's aura and vitality in Thought Moon Immortal's body. She suspiciously looked at her friend of many years, unable to figure out why this was the case. These two couldn't have done something that couldn't be revealed. As if she could see Shui Yuan's confusion, Thought Moon Immortal's pale face flushed red. Don't think too much. Your junior brother's abilities aren't ordinary. He seems to be able to use some very special spirit inscriptions. What? Thought Moon Immortal then told her everything that happened after Lu Yi activated the Rainbow Phoenix. Shui Yuan immediately revealed a look of surprise. This kind of spirit inscriptions that could allow two unrelated people to share the foundation of their physical bodies, not to mention seeing it, she had never even heard of it. After thinking for a while, Shui Yuan said, Junior brother once obtained the inheritance of a spirit inscriptionist in the Spirit Stream battlefield. Perhaps it's a gift from that inheritance. Thought Moon Immortal finally understood. In comparison, both Thought Moon Immortal and Lu Ye's injuries were very serious. However, one of them was at the Divine Sea Realm, and the other had abundant vitality in her body. Therefore, no matter how serious their injuries were, it wouldn't affect their foundation. They only needed to recuperate for a while to recover. Time passed. Under Shui Yuan's careful treatment, Lu Yi and Thought Moon Immortal's injuries were completely healed in only 3 days. However, what made them worried was that Lu Yi was still unconscious. After another check, Yi asked nervously, Second senior sister, why hasn't Lu Yi woken up yet? Logically speaking, even if Lu Ye's divine soul was injured before, after a few days of recuperation and taking the soul-cleansing water, he should have recovered and woken up. However, for some reason, he was still unconscious. Even Shui Yuan couldn't understand this situation. She had never encountered such a situation before. Injuries to the divine soul are extremely complicated. I can't say for sure why he's like this. If we want to know the reason, unless... Shui Yuan hesitated. Yi didn't know what she was going to do, but Thought Moon Immortal reacted. You want to enter his divine soul? Shui Yuan nodded. Only in this way can we investigate clearly. It's very dangerous. Thought Moon Immortal's expression was grave. Shui Yuan looked up at her and said, He's my junior brother. Of course I know it's dangerous. Why are you so nervous? The danger was for Lu Yi. After all, He wasn't at the divine sea realm and didn't have his own divine sense. His divine soul's defense wouldn't be too strong. If an external force invaded, it was very likely that some damage would occur. Thought Moon Immortal looked to the side. Set up the formation and protect him. Shui Yuan was a decisive person. Since she had made a decision, she didn't delay any longer. Thought Moon Immortal flashed out. Immediately, there was the sound of something breaking through the air. Clearly, she was setting up a large formation. After a full 2 hours, she returned and nodded slightly at Shui Yuan. With a divine sea realm cultivator like her in charge and with many large formations, even if Wanmo Ridge really had experts invading, they would be safe for the time being. Only then did Shui Yuan take a deep breath, raise a finger, and touch Lu Ye's forehead. In the next instant, she closed her eyes and her divine sense surged. It was naturally easy for a divine sea realm cultivator's divine sense to invade the mind of a true lake realm cultivator. However, Shui Yuan clearly sensed a very strong resistance this time. It was as if there was an invisible force blocking her, preventing her from invading Lu Ye's body. She didn't expect this situation and couldn't help but be slightly shocked. If she wanted to investigate Lu Ye's current situation and find out why he had been unconscious for so long, she had to use her divine sense to examine him carefully, but if she couldn't even do this, what was the point of trying to investigate him? In such a situation, unless she forcefully broke through. However, if she really did that, it would definitely cause irreparable damage to Lu Yi. It was just like how Wan Zhonggang used his divine sense to attack Lu Yi. Little junior brother was just a true lake realm cultivator. How could he have such a strong divine soul defense? Moreover, this was a divine soul defense. It wasn't active. The first step of her plan was already in a predicament. The situation was a little awkward. Since she couldn't forcefully break through, she could only retreat temporarily and think of another way. Just as Shui Yuan was about to do that, the force blocking her divine sense from invading Lu Ye's mind suddenly disappeared without a trace. It was as if a gap had opened up for her. She clicked to download the best book-chasing app. Many readers used this to read books aloud. Chapter 888. Shui Yuan was overjoyed. She knew that although her little junior brother was still unconscious, his instincts were still there. After sensing her aura, he let down his guard. She no longer hesitated and sent her divine sense into it. In the next moment, she arrived in a strange world. This should be the depths of Lu Ye's soul. In the center of the gray world, there was a vague figure curled up, as if it was sleeping in its mother's womb. The silhouette was surrounded by something that looked like fog but wasn't fog. It looked like liquid but wasn't liquid. Looking at the figure carefully, it clearly had some resemblance to Lu Yi. Seeing this bizarre scene, Shui Yuan was instantly stupefied. Her cultivation had been cultivated step by step, so she had naturally experienced the transformation from true lake to spirit sea. Moreover, because the Jade Blood sect had few people and lacked cultivation resources, she had been stuck in this transformation process for a long time. Her memory of this was still fresh. The vague figure in front of her, could it be her little junior brother's soul body? That thing that was wrapped around his soul was neither mist nor liquid. Could it be the manifestation of his divine sense? How could this be? Even though Shui Yuan was a spirit sea realm cultivator, she was still shaken to the core. The most crucial step for a cultivator to advance from true lake to spirit sea was the step in front of them. Their soul had to be strong enough to nurture their own soul body. Logically speaking, a cultivator could only slowly accumulate such a foundation after reaching true lake realm 9th order. Moreover, not every true lake realm cultivator could accumulate it. There were many spirit sea realm cultivators in the 9 continents, but there were even more true lake realm cultivators. Even if some cultivators were talented, many were stuck at this stage because their soul wasn't strong enough. If their soul wasn't strong enough, they couldn't nurture their own soul body. If they couldn't nurture their own soul body, they couldn't develop their divine sense. Naturally, they couldn't touch the threshold of the spirit sea realm. Generally speaking, it was rare for a true lake cultivator to advance to spirit sea. This was also the case in the unique cultivation environment of the 9 continents. If it wasn't in the 9 continents, such as the soaring dragon realm or the peerless continent, it would be more difficult for a true lake cultivator to advance to spirit sea. In the 9 continents, there were various operations of Heaven's secret. There was a huge variety of treasures stored in the Heaven's secret treasury. What cultivators needed to do was to accumulate their own merits or war achievements and buy the various resources they needed. The soaring dragon realm and the Wushuang continent did not have this condition. A soul body that even a true lake realm 9th order cultivator might not be able to nurture had actually appeared in his junior brother's body. Xueyuan really couldn't understand why this was happening. Could it be that his little junior brother's soul was strong enough to give birth to a soul body? But he had just broken through to the true lake realm not long ago. A first-order true lake realm cultivator had already begun to nurture his own soul body. No one would believe such a thing. But on second thought, if his junior brother's soul was indeed strong enough to nurture a soul body, then the reason why he was unconscious was found. After observing for a moment longer to make sure that she wasn't seeing things, Xueyuan retracted her spiritual perception. When he looked up, he saw Yi's nervous little face. Thought Moon Immortal was also waiting quietly by the side. Yi, let me ask you something. You have to tell me the truth, Xueyuan said. Yes, yes. Yi nodded her head like a chick pecking at rice. Did Lu Yi consume all of the soul-cleansing water he got, other than the ones he gave to me and 4th junior brother? Before? Yi was a little confused. Which one are you talking about? Xueyuan was stunned. There was another one? Xueyuan knew that Lu Yi had soul-cleansing water in his hands. The reason why he was able to break through to the divine sea realm so quickly was not only because Lu Yi brought a huge amount of resources to the Blue Blood sect, but also because of the soul-cleansing water he gave her. As far as she knew, Lu Yi gave some to Li Baxian in addition to her, so he should have kept some for himself. But when he asked which one, Xueyuan realized that things weren't so simple. Listening to what she said, it seemed that Lu Yi had gotten soul-cleansing water more than once. Sure enough, Yi nodded. A few months ago, he entered the Immortal Essence City again and obtained a lot of soul-cleansing water. The ones he got at the beginning have long been used up. Xueyuan was a little dumbfounded when she heard this. That was soul-cleansing water, not some random thing. Lu Yi gave her some back then. Other than using some to break through to the divine sea realm, she was unwilling to use most of it in case she needed it. That was because this thing couldn't be bought in the Tianji treasure vault. Every time she used it, she would have less of it. There weren't many ways to obtain it. Yi continued, anyway, I often see him using soul-cleansing water. He used it when breaking through the 100 Formation Pagoda, when investigating new spirit patterns, and when activating the talent tree's power. Every now and then, when he felt that his energy wasn't enough, he might use it to refresh himself. Nian Yu Immortal's expression also turned strange. She wanted to ask if the soul-cleansing water they were talking about was the same as the one she knew. Xueyuan suddenly felt a headache coming on. She nodded slightly. If that's the case, I understand. What do you mean? Nian Yu Immortal asked. She didn't know why Xueyuan would suddenly ask about soul-cleansing water after investigating Lu Ye's situation. Xueyuan didn't hide it from her. After so many years of friendship, they were both friends and family. It was enough to trust each other. Lu Yi is nurturing his soul. Nian Yu Immortal was stunned for a while before frowning. That's impossible. I don't think it's possible either. But I saw it with my own eyes. It can't be wrong. Xueyuan took a deep breath, and her full chest rose high. He's been consuming soul-cleansing water for a long time, causing his spirit to be much stronger than his true cultivation base. He barely has the ability to nurture a soul. If there's no external stimulation, it won't take long for him to reach this level. However, he was previously stimulated by external forces. His spirit should have been impacted. He might not know what nurturing a soul is, but driven by instinct, he made this choice to protect himself. Nian Yu Immortal nodded. Yes, Wan Zhonggang attacked him with spiritual force. Wan Zhonggang. A cold light flashed in Shui Yuan's eyes. A great divine sea bullying the weak. Shameless. Nian Yu Immortal said. You came to 1GF because you were impacted by Wan Zhonggang's spiritual force. Your spirit was shaken, so driven by instinct, you used this method to protect yourself. Shui Yuan nodded. It's a blessing in disguise. But there's a problem now, she turned to look at Yi. I said just now, although his spirit is strong, it's barely enough to nurture a soul. A cultivator in the process realm would fall here, just like Lu Ye's current state. He failed to nurture a soul and continued for his entire life. That's it. Then what should we do? Yi became nervous. Shui Yuan raised a hand and knocked her head. Stupid. He needs to nurture a soul, so he'll naturally consume a lot of spirit power. We just need to replenish the spirit power he consumes. The moment his soul is successfully nurtured, he'll naturally wake up. Soul cleansing water. Yi's eyes lit up. Shui Yuan nodded. Yes. It's all here. Yi quickly took out the bottle of soul cleansing water and handed it to Shui Yuan. Lu Yi put the rest in the tattooed space. That should be enough. Shui Yuan smiled faintly. Now that she understood Lu Ye's current situation and had a corresponding solution, her mood also relaxed. Moreover, she still had some soul-cleansing water. If it wasn't enough, she could go to Li Baxian. He should have some as well. After all, no one was like Lu Yi, drinking soul-cleansing water like it was water. This matter was simple to solve here, but if it was someone else who encountered this situation, it would be difficult to solve. Unless they found some spirit fruits or spirit pills that could replenish spiritual energy, but these things were all precious and precious. The big sects treasured them and wouldn't easily take them out. But then again, this time, Lu Yi might really be a blessing in disguise. Even Wan Zhonggang didn't expect this. Wan Zhonggang's soul attack in anger would force Lu Yi to instinctively nurture a soul. And once Lu Yi succeeded, it would mean that he, a first-order true Lake Realm cultivator, would have his own soul and divine sense. This was absolutely unprecedented. At that time, he, a first-order true Lake Realm cultivator, would be able to use some of the methods that only Spirit Sea Realm cultivators could use. He would be able to kill enemies above his realm, and no one could predict what kind of change his true combat power would undergo. Inside the bamboo house, everyone stayed close to the bed. Shui Yuan would occasionally send her divine sense into Lu Ye's body to check his condition and then make some targeted measures. She originally thought that giving Lu Yi 1 drop of soul-cleansing water a day would be enough, but after checking, she found that the amount was still too little. She immediately changed it to 2 drops a day, then 3, not to mention the preciousness of soul-cleansing water. Ordinary cultivators would not be able to bear taking so much in one day. This was the so-called weak principle. However, because Lu Yi had been taking soul-cleansing water for a long time, he didn't show any adverse reactions. Moreover, because of the effect of soul-cleansing water, the speed at which his soul was being nurtured had greatly increased. Under Shui Yuan's observation, the originally blurry shadow gradually became more solid, and the strange thing that wrapped it also showed signs of liquefaction. 3 days later, when Shui Yuan finished her final examination, she slowly got up from the bed and said, "He should wake up tonight at the earliest, or tomorrow at the latest." Yi, who had been worried all this time, finally smiled when she heard this. "You're not waiting for him to wake up?" Nian Yuxian sensed the meaning behind Shui Yuan's words. Shui Yuan shook her head. "No need. I'm relieved that he's with you." Nian Yuxian snorted softly. She didn't know who it was that came over a few days ago with a posture that looked like they wanted to eat her alive. Shui Yuan pretended not to see it. I'll go back first. There are many things to do in the sect now, and the old man has no time to leave. Nian Yuxian nodded slightly. Shui Yuan took a step forward and looked back at Nian Yuxian. If you have time, go and see the old man. He misses you. Got it. Pushing her spirit energy, Shui Yuan shot up into the sky and quickly left. When she looked back, Yi was standing at the door, waving goodbye to her. Chapter 889. Lu Yi felt like he had a very long dream, but when he woke up, he could not remember the contents of the dream. However, at this moment, his mind was unprecedentedly clear, and even his thoughts seemed to be working faster than before. There was a faint feeling that some kind of transformation had taken place. He did not know what had happened to his body. He only remembered that he had activated the flying rainbow phoenixes and joined forces with the Thought Moon Immortal to defend against the enemy. Accompanied by a furious roar, he felt a sharp pain in his head and then lost consciousness. There seemed to be something not quite right. He looked at Yi in front of him and found that Yi was frowning and staring behind him. Her gaze seemed to have passed through the barrier of his body. Bewildered, Yi turned to look to the side. Sister Xian, this is... Lu Yi wanted to ask her what she was looking at, but when he opened his mouth, no sound came out. This gave him a fright. It was only then that he realized something inconceivable. He actually did not have a body. He was clearly standing here and could see everything around him, but there was no physical existence. He was dead. Search. When this thought appeared, Lu Yi fell into a daze. Divine sense is unique to the divine ocean realm. You used the true lake realm to nurture your soul body and give birth to divine sense. It is inevitable that there will be a lot of discomfort. Now that your divine sense has left your body, it is not an accident. Be careful of your mind, and your divine sense will naturally return to your body. The Thought Moon Immortal's voice came from the side. Lu Yi turned to look and met the Thought Moon Immortal's cold gaze. She seemed to be able to see him and nodded slightly. Do as I say, and there will be no problems. Lu Yi quickly immersed his mind and discarded the many distracting thoughts in his mind. The next moment, he felt that there seemed to be something beside him that had an extremely close connection with him. When he turned to look, he could not help but see a surprising scene. His body was lying on the bamboo bed beside him. Thinking about what the Thought Moon Immortal said just now, Lu Yi more or less understood what had happened to him. With a thought, his divine sense returned to his body. All the discomfort disappeared in an instant, and he could feel his own existence again. He suddenly opened his eyes and sat up on the bed. Lu Yi, you're awake. Yi rushed over and looked at him with concern. Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Hoopa also jumped onto his knees and stared at him with a pair of tiger eyes. Lu Yi shook his head slowly. No, I feel very good. Indeed, he felt very good. From inside to outside, he had never felt so good before. He gently clenched his fists. There was no change in his strength, but some kind of internal transformation had been completed silently. My lord, he stood up and cupped his fists towards Thought Moon Immortal, who was not far away, asking for guidance. My lord, you said that I have nurtured a soul body and given birth to a divine will. The Thought Moon Immortal nodded. In the previous battle, you suffered an attack from 10,000 Zhonggang's spiritual sense. If it was any other true lake stage cultivator, they would have already died. However, your spiritual sense was strong enough to survive. Even so, your spiritual sense was still heavily injured and you fell into a coma. In order to protect yourself, you nurtured your spiritual body and escaped from your suffering. Now that you have awakened, it means that you have successfully nurtured your spiritual body. What happened just now was your spiritual sense leaving your body. Lu Yi couldn't help but be absent-minded. Soul body, divine sense, then am I considered a true lake or deity ocean? Is there a divine sea as weak as you? Thought Moon Immortal calmly replied. Lu Yi thought that was true. Even though he had a soul body and spiritual will, His cultivation level was still at the true lake stage. But then again, since he had already given birth to a God spiritual sense, then he could use some techniques unique to the divine sea stage. For example, the charm God pattern. This thing required spiritual sense to construct and activate. You have just given birth to your spiritual sense, so it is inevitable that you are not used to it. You will be fine once you get used to it. Everyone needs to go through this stage. Yes. If there is anything you do not understand about the spiritual sense, feel free to ask me. Okay. This is some general knowledge about the divine sea stage. Take a look yourself. Thought Moon Immortal threw him a jade letter. Obviously, it was specially prepared for him. Lu Yi received it. Thank you, my lord. Also, if you wear this on your body, it will have a certain effect on resisting spiritual sense attacks. Thought Moon Immortal took out another item. Lu Yi looked up and realized that it was a small golden lock. It looked like a longevity lock, and should be worn around his neck. I wore this when I was in the true lake stage. It is useless now, so I will give it to you. As Thought Moon Immortal said, she threw it to Lu Yi and added, if there comes a day when you no longer need this item, you can return it to me. Lu Yi grabbed that golden lock. He instinctively felt that this item should be something very meaningful to Thought Moon Immortal. He originally wanted to reject it, but when he thought of his experience, he accepted it obediently. When a true lake stage cultivator faced a spiritual sense attack from a divine sea stage cultivator, they did not have any good methods to deal with it. They could only rely on their own soul to resist it. A cultivator with a powerful soul like Lu Yi could still survive a spiritual sense attack. But if it was a cultivator with a weaker soul, their life and death would depend on their luck. However, cultivators from large sections, usually they would wear a treasure that had a certain effect on resisting spiritual sense attack. This way, they could increase their chances of survival in front of a divine sea stage cultivator. Without hesitation, he wore that golden lock around his neck. Don't go out for the next few days. Familiarize yourself with your spiritual sense, Thought Moon Immortal reminded him before turning to leave. Lu Yi always felt that she was a little strange. During their previous interactions, this Mountain Pass Lord had been tormenting him and giving him messy missions. Moreover, she seemed to have a cold temperament and did not like to interact with outsiders. But overall, he felt that she was not too hard to get along with. After this incident, Lu Yi felt that their relationship would improve. But now, it seemed that his Mountain Pass Lord's aura of being 1,000 miles away was even stronger. Even though she kept reminding him about this and that, and even gave him things, that feeling was not wrong. Second senior sister is here. Lu Yi suddenly sniffed lightly and asked. Yi was surprised. How did you know? When Shui Yuan came, Lu Yi was unconscious. When Shui Yuan left, Lu Yi was still unconscious. It did not make sense for Lu Yi to know about this. I smell second senior sister. Lu Yi answered casually. Everyone had a different scent, and the scent of mandarin fish gave people a very warm feeling. Yi could not help but glare at Lu Yi and say, when Sister Xian brought you back, she sent a message to second senior sister. So on the night we returned, second senior sister rushed here. It was she who treated your injuries and found out why you were unconscious. But second senior sister has already returned to the sect. Lu Yi sighed. She left without waiting for me to wake up. As he spoke, he checked the jade slip that Thought Moon Immortal had given him. The jade slip recorded information about the Spirit Sea realm, as well as things that cultivators who had just entered the Spirit Sea realm needed to pay attention to. Among them, there was a detailed explanation of the soul body and spiritual sense. In a short while, Lu Yi finished checking. Closing his eyes, he followed the method in the jade slip and immersed his mind. In the next instant, his body suddenly underwent some strange changes. Lu Yi hurriedly examined himself and found that he was no longer in the bamboo house, but in a strange world. This should be the depths of his soul. At this moment, he was also in the state of a soul body. Everyone's soul body was an imprint of themselves. Whatever their original appearance was, the soul body would be the same. The soul body was formless and formless, seemingly illusory yet real. Converging to form the soul body, dissipating to form spiritual sense. Cultivators could only enter the spirit sea realm after taking that step like Lu Yi, nurturing their own soul body and giving birth to spiritual sense. This was a huge hurdle. Since ancient times, countless true lake stage cultivators had fallen in front of this hurdle. But to Lu Yi, this hurdle was already broken through. In other words, he would not face any obstacles in advancing to the spirit sea realm in the future. As long as his cultivation reached the right level, success would follow naturally. This was undoubtedly good news. After experiencing what he needed to experience, there would be some benefit. Looking in front of him, there were sparkling waves and rippling water. Lu Ye's expression turned strange. The origin of the name Spirit Sea Realm came from the fact that one's spiritual sense could form a sea. But how could the sparkling waves in front of him be considered a sea? It was even worse than a lake. At most, it could be considered a small pond. God's lake, but thinking about it, he was after all a true lake stage cultivator's soul body. He had broken through the inherent shackles of ancient times. The scale of this spirit sea was a little small. It seemed reasonable. He could not force it. As long as he cultivated step by step, there would be a day when the spirit sea realm would become a spirit sea realm. With a thought, his soul came out of his body and his spiritual sense spread out. When he just woke up, he subconsciously used his spiritual sense. But at that time, he did not understand the situation, so he did not feel much. Until now, he took the initiative to do it. Under the spread of his spiritual sense, everything around him entered his heart. It was more detailed and comprehensive than looking with the naked eye. Before he had spiritual sense, Lu Yi mainly relied on his own perception of his surroundings. But pure perception was extremely vague. It was as if someone was standing behind him. With his perception, Lu Yi knew that there was someone behind him. But whether this person was a man or a woman, or what they looked like, he was completely unclear. However, now that he was relying on his spiritual sense, not only was he able to clearly see the person's appearance, he was even able to see what the person was wearing. Relying on his spiritual sense, there was no doubt that he had a qualitative breakthrough. Moreover, when his divine sense left his body just now, he had clearly noticed some clues. This was because he was not familiar enough with controlling his divine sense and had leaked his aura. If he was familiar enough and could perfectly control his divine sense, such a method could be used to pry into some secrets. But he did not know how far he could see with this thought. Lu Yi used his spiritual sense to extend outwards and instantly left the bamboo house. Not long after, he saw the figure of Thought Moon Immortal. She was guarding nearby, sitting on the trunk of a big tree. In her hand, she was holding the wine that Lu Yi had bought for her from the nearby mountain pass. Drinking alone under the moon. Her figure was bleak and lonely. Chapter 890. Almost at the same time as Lu Ye's divine sense spied on her, Thought Moon Immortal turned her gaze to him. The risk of divine sense leaving the body is huge. If I were an enemy, I could break your divine sense right now and damage your spirit. Therefore, even if you are in the divine sea realm, you won't easily use divine sense. You must be careful when you do this in the future. After saying this, she looked away and looked up at the moon. Lu Yi silently noted it down and urged his divine sense to pass by her and continue to explore forward. However, the further he went, the more difficult it was. Lu Yi could clearly feel that his spirit power was rapidly being consumed. After a while, he couldn't help but feel tired. He didn't dare to continue trying and quickly withdrew his divine sense. When he opened his eyes again, his head was a little dizzy. He knew that this was because he had consumed too much spirit power. After all, the divine pool was still too small. Although he had already nurtured a soul body and developed divine sense, he still couldn't use it for a long time. However, through the experiment just now, he was sure of one thing. His divine sense could explore a radius of about 1 mile, which was much larger than the range that could be explored by perception alone. Moreover, it could be more clear and comprehensive. Feeling a little tired, Lu Yi didn't hesitate and directly swallowed a drop of soul-cleansing water. For others, soul-cleansing water was rare, but for him, it could be exchanged with battle merits. In the battle merits pavilion, a drop of soul-cleansing water was worth 13,000 battle merit. Even if it was used up, he could still obtain it at any time. Moreover, he still had a lot of divine sense in his hands, so there was no need to be stingy. Speaking of which, it was precisely because of his open-minded mood that his spirit was strong enough to have the opportunity to turn danger into safety and gain a blessing in disguise. There was no hurry to familiarize himself with divine sense. This wasn't difficult in itself. For Lu Yi, it was just an additional means to investigate the enemy's situation and even fight against them. As time passed, he would gradually become familiar with it. It was time to check on his gains this time. This time, he went to the Exen Society on Mount Dad to light up the spiritual inscription that he had been looking forward to for 2 or 3 months. However, he didn't expect so many things to happen by accident. Not only did he obtain 7 new spiritual inscriptions, but his talent tree also seemed to show signs of transformation. He also obtained a large number of fire spirit stones. Other than putting himself in danger at the last moment to save Thought Moon Immortal, it could be said that he had gained a lot. But at that time, he really couldn't sit back and do nothing. The reason why the missing Moon Immortal's whereabouts were exposed and she was besieged by several divine sea realm cultivators of the myriad Devil Ridge was because of him. In this way they could be considered to be even. Lu Yi wasn't too sure about the effects of the 7 newly obtained spirit tattoos. When Yi and Hooper returned, he had already fallen unconscious. He immediately asked Yi about the situation at that time. When he found out that the 2 of them were able to imitate Shen Hai's art text, he underestimated this spirit rune. It was true that it could not bring him any improvement in strength, but at a critical moment, this spiritual pattern could produce some miraculous effects. Take this time as an example. If it weren't for Yi and Hooper rushing over at the last moment despite the might of the divine sea realm, Wan Zhonggang wouldn't have retreated so easily. He might really have had to fight to the death with Thought Moon Immortal. There was no need to talk about moonshine. This thing was the core spirit rune of the counter formation. When Lu Yi activated it to block Wan Zhonggang's attack, it didn't seem to have much effect, but in fact it had already produced miraculous effects. At that time, if he didn't have moonshine, he wouldn't have been able to block a divine sea realm cultivator's attack with just his defense, even if it was just a hasty and casual attack. Flying rainbow phoenixes was the key to saving Thought Moon Immortal this time. Lu Yi hadn't tried the corresponding spirit rune yet, but this spirit rune couldn't be casually tested unless he used Yi as a test subject. Other than these 4 spirit runes, the remaining 3 were Thousand Faces, Split Shadow, and Twin Lotus Flowers on one stalk. Thousand Faces was a type of spirit rune that could change one's appearance. When activated, Lu Yi could change his appearance. A long time ago, he wanted to buy a treasure that could change his appearance from the Tianji treasure vault. Because of his reputation, many cultivators of the myriad Devil Ridge had seen his image. There were many times when he needed to hide his identity, but he hadn't found a suitable one, so he could only use a face mask. But a face mask was too eye-catching. Although there were many cultivators who liked to wear a face mask and hide their true appearance, there were always times when it wasn't good to wear a face mask. For example, when he went to Lonely Mountain City with Ing Wuji, the experts of the myriad Devil Ridge were busy dealing with the attack of the fire spirit race and didn't have time to pay attention to him. In addition, he was with Ing Wuji, so the myriad Devil Ridge naturally treated him as one of their own. But under normal circumstances, wearing a face mask would make it more conspicuous. If Lonely Mountain City really wanted to check his identity, he definitely wouldn't be able to pass. Now that he had the Thousand Faces spirit rune, he could completely throw away the face mask. With this spirit rune, he could transform into any face he wanted. But compared to wearing a face mask, the Thousand Faces spirit rune needed to be activated to maintain it. This was one of its disadvantages. Unlike a face mask, one only needed to wear it on one's face to activate it. The Thousand Faces spirit rune was a very useful spirit rune. Under the activation of the spirit rune, one could use one's chi, blood, and spirit energy as the basis to construct a figure that was no different from one's own. At a critical moment, it could be used to escape or to confuse the enemy. This time, if he hadn't been holding the Thought Moon Immortal, he could have activated this spirit rune when facing the attack of Wanzhong Gang. As for how useful this spirit rune would be in front of a powerful divine Sea Realm cultivator, no one knew. As for the twin lotus flowers, this spirit rune was a bit strange. It was similar to the combination of the flying rainbow phoenixes and the 1 point of telepathy, but it wasn't exactly the same. Lu Yi didn't know where to use this spirit rune. But after his experience with the spirit rune, Lu Yi was still looking forward to this spirit rune. A spirit rune that required dozens of leaves to carry it wasn't ordinary. He couldn't find the right way to use it now, but he should be able to in the future. Obtaining 7 new spirit runes in one go had already broken the previous record. The main reason was that the talent tree at the mouth of Mount Songyan had absorbed too much energy. Not only did it light up 7 spirit runes, but the talent tree itself was also showing signs of turning into a pie. The transformation of the talent tree definitely required a lot of energy. Fortunately, he had obtained a lot of fire spiritual stones this time. The fire spiritual stones that Ing Wuji's team had mined were all in his hands. These were just a part of it. The real bulk was found by him and Yi in the underground city. Such a large amount should be enough for the transformation of the talent tree. But then again, he and Yi had only searched a small area and already had such a harvest. If they searched the entire underground city, their harvest would be even greater. There was also a hidden fire element earth vein. If he could get it, the talent tree would have a lot of changes. Unfortunately, the Myriad Demons Ridge had benefited. The Fire Spirit Race's army didn't conquer the Lone Mountain Pass. Instead, they suffered heavy casualties. The Myriad Demons Ridge had to get rid of this hidden danger completely. If the Fire Spirit Race was eradicated, everything in the mouth of the volcano would belong to the Myriad Demons Ridge. He felt it was a pity, but there was nothing he could do about it. Only he and the Thought Moon Immortal were at the mouth of Mount Songyan. They had just experienced a dangerous situation. Naturally, they had to keep a low profile for a while. Slouch not thinking about this, Lu Yi took out his mountain pan saber. He unsheathed the saber and looked at it. The corner of his eyes twitched. He had gained a lot this time, but there were also losses. The biggest loss was the mountain pan saber. This magic artifact level long saber had several cracks on it, because it had blocked Wan Zhonggong's punch. It was obviously not very useful anymore. Lu Yi couldn't change the saber casually unless the mountain pan saber was completely broken. Since he couldn't change the saber, he could only repair it. He raised his hand and tapped on the battlefield imprint to send out a message. He soon received a reply. He didn't know why Master Yu was so free. He flashed out and came to the tree where the Thought Moon Immortal was. Lu Yi looked up and shouted, "My lord, is there a divine secret hall here?" Logically speaking, there should be one, but Lu Yi didn't know where it was. "It's at the center of the city. Go look for it yourself," the Thought Moon Immortal replied casually. Lu Yi cupped his fists and retreated. He flew toward the ruined city. Soon, he arrived at the center of the city and found a relatively intact hall. When he entered, he saw a pillar of heavenly secrets standing there. He stepped forward and pressed his hand on the divine secret pillar. He said in his heart, Spiritual artifact upgrade, Master Yu. In the next moment the world spun. When he came back to his senses, he had already appeared in a secret room. There was a stone platform in the middle. On the opposite side, a woman in her 30s with fair skin and wearing a close-fitting floral dress was already waiting. Their eyes met. The woman opened her mouth and said with that old voice, "Little friend, your strength has improved again?" Last time, Lu Yi asked her to upgrade her spiritual artifact during the Spirit Stream battle. The Mountain Pan Saber had also been upgraded from spiritual artifact to magic artifact. Logically speaking, he shouldn't have come to find her so quickly. She didn't expect to receive Lu Ye's message today. They agreed to meet at the same place. No. Lu Yi didn't waste time and directly handed the Mountain Pan Saber over. The woman took the saber and took a look. Her beautiful eyes couldn't help but shrink. It was a magic artifact that she refined herself. Moreover, the Mountain Pan Saber was mainly heavy. She knew how hard it was. But now, several cracks were clearly visible on the saber. Moreover, looking at the patterns, it was clearly caused by brute force. You were beaten up by a divine Sea Realm cultivator? The woman was extremely shocked. Lu Yi was speechless. He didn't even say anything. This woman only took a look at the saber and deduced such information. It could be seen that she was also a quick-witted person. Interesting. You're actually still alive. The woman laughed lightly. The Mountain Pan Saber suffered such heavy damage. It didn't make sense that the person holding the saber could survive. However, Lu Yi was standing in front of her. Looking at it this way, this brat in front of her must be from some top sect. He must have a life-saving treasure on him. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense for him to survive. Name your price. Yes. After interacting with her several times, Lu Yi roughly knew this woman's temperament. Therefore, he didn't bother to waste time with her. Soon, the two sides agreed on the price and time of delivery. They set a divine secret contract and left their imprints on the divine secret contract. He clicked to download the Best Book Chaser app. Many readers used it to read books aloud. Chapter 891. Not in a hurry to leave the Tianji treasury, Lu Yi bought some fresh meat and contacted the War Merit Pavilion again. There was something he needed to buy for later use. Seeing his arrival, the two flood dragons on the ancient door immediately came to life. The silver flood dragon on the right was even more expectant. "Kid, what delicious food did you bring this time?" The golden flood dragon on the left did not speak, but its raised head clearly showed its eagerness. Countless years of waiting could be endured, but once the taboo was broken and tasted the sweetness, their state of mind would be different. They could endure endless loneliness and darkness, as if they had never seen the light. Lu Yi smiled and took out the prepared meat, feeding it to the two flood dragons. The silver flood dragon was still the same, chewing while shouting, satisfying, delicious. The golden flood dragon was undoubtedly more reserved than the silver flood dragon, but its wolf-like appearance was not inferior at all. After finishing the meat in 2 to 3 bites, the silver flood dragon looked at Lu Yi expectantly, obviously still wanting more. Where could Lu Yi find more? The meat he bought from the Tianji treasury was not cheap, costing him close to 20,000 merit. They were all demonic commander-level demonic beast meat. Although he did not lack merits, he could not buy too much at once. After staring at Lu Yi for a while, the silver flood dragon didn't come to feed it, but instead seemed to have discovered something strange. With a cry of surprise, it stretched its long body out of the door and circled around Lu Yi, its large head floating in front of Lu Yi, its pair of vertical pupils reflecting Lu Yi's figure. The silver flood dragon suddenly laughed. "Big brother, this little brat has a divine sense." The golden flood dragon's pupils shrank slightly. It looked at Lu Yi carefully and could not help but reveal a surprised expression, as expected. Lu Yi was astonished. How could it tell? What was the background of this gold flood dragon? His figure here should only be a projection of his mind, not his physical body, because his physical body was still in the Tianji Hall. Logically speaking, Gold Flood Dragon should not be able to see any clues, because even if Lu Yi stood in front of a divine ocean stage cultivator, if he did not actively use his spiritual will, the other party would not be able to discover anything. But he was only a projection of his mind here, yet Gold Flood Dragon saw some secrets. This was somewhat inconceivable. Brat, you're only in the true lake stage. How can you nurture a soul and give birth to spiritual will? The Golden Jiao Dragon had a puzzled expression. In its ancient life, it had never seen such a bizarre thing, and it couldn't help but be curious. Some luck, some coincidence. Lu Yi didn't plan to explain too much to them, mainly because he couldn't. Although he didn't know why the two flood dragons were guarding the entrance of the War Merit Pavilion, after a few interactions, he could more or less see that this wasn't their original intention. It was more like they had been inexplicably integrated into the entrance of the War Merit Pavilion, which was why they were trapped here and couldn't escape. Since that was the case, it didn't matter if they saw through him. "May I go in now?" Lu Yi asked. The Golden Flood Dragon stared deeply at Lu Yi for a while before letting out a sinister laugh. "What a strange kid!" Right after Shao Chen spoke, he withdrew with the Silver Flood Dragon. The two flood dragons twisted and turned into a concentric circle above the door. With a creaking sound, the door of the War Merit Pavilion opened. Lu Yi went straight in, arriving in front of a stone platform with familiar ease, and spent 18,000 battle merits to buy a Myriad Demon Ridge battlefield imprint. The back of his hand warmed slightly, and a red light flashed. The battlefield imprint he bought from the War Merit Pavilion was not permanent, but a one-time use item. Lu Yi knew this when he bought it. Moreover, it didn't last for a long time, only 2 hours. In other words, the Myriad Demon Ridge battlefield imprint hidden on the back of his hand, once activated, would only last for 2 hours. After 2 hours it would dissipate on its own. Therefore, Lu Ye's action of following Ing Wuji to the Lone City Rampart that day was actually very dangerous, because if someone wanted to verify their identity at that time, Lu Yi would have had nothing to hide. However, he was also certain that the Lone City Rampart side would most likely not do so, which was why he had acted so boldly. After all, he had gone with Ing Wuji, and naturally gave the Myriad Demon Ridge side a preconceived impression. Moreover, at that time, the Fire Spirit Race army was about to reach the city, so who would have the mind to verify his identity? The previous Myriad Demon Ridge battlefield imprint had already dissipated, so he naturally had to buy another one. After this incident, Lu Yi felt that Wang Yuanyi was very useful. Most of the time, he could use Wang Yuanyi to fish in the water and confuse the enemy. For example, if he didn't have the Myriad Demon Ridge battlefield imprint, he would most likely have clashed with Ing Wuji and the others and killed everyone. After checking his battle merits, he was left with 88,410 points. Compared to the last time he checked, it had increased instead of decreased. Lu Yi thought about it. It was most likely because he had obtained some of the battle merits from killing the Fire Spirit Race and the Patrol Guard's Moon Physique. He had thought that having too many positions was useless, but now it seemed that they were actually useful. He had 2 positions. One was the Garrison Guard, and the other was the Patrol Guard. He could get 2 monthly salaries, each of which was 20,000 battle merits. This also meant that even if he did nothing at the Blue Flame Mountain Pass and just went out to patrol every day, he could easily get 40,000 battle merits every month. This was a good thing that couldn't be found even if one held a lantern. No wonder so many cultivators liked to run to the front lines of the 2 factions and join the prefecture guards. He had a position, but the position of the garrison guard was very special. There was no military rank, and he didn't know how many moon physiques she had. 80,000 battle merits could be exchanged for a few golden spirit tags. Lu Yi pondered for a moment and decided not to exchange for them. He needed to accumulate some battle merits to buy a treasure. This time, He had suffered a great loss at the hands of Wan Zhonggang, which made him deeply feel the huge difference between himself and the divine sea realm. In the future, he would inevitably have to deal with other divine sea realm cultivators. Although he now had his own divine lake and had nurtured divine will, he had been lucky enough to have a divine lake. There was still a big gap between him and a proper divine sea realm cultivator. How to protect his soul in front of divine sea realm cultivators was the most important thing for him to consider now. The thought Moon Immortal gave him a golden lock. It was said that it could slightly resist divine will attacks, but it was hard to say how effective it was. Lu Yi had never tried it, so he didn't know how powerful it was. However, he couldn't entrust his life to this golden lock. There was no need to talk about other things in the War Merit Pavilion, but there were all kinds of treasures. Naturally, there were treasures that could protect one's soul. These treasures had a special name. Soul Tool. Lu Yi had his eyes on a soul tool, but it was expensive and he couldn't afford it at the moment. Lu Yi didn't stay in the War Merit Pavilion for long and left quickly. The two flood dragons behind him sent him off. After leaving the Tianji Hall, Lu Yi returned to his bamboo house. Yi and Hu Po were already waiting for him. Cultivate, cultivate, Lu Yi called out. The spirit and tiger immediately came to his side and sat down obediently. The cultivation of the true lake realm was different from that of the spirit stream realm and the cloud river realm. Pang Huanin had been puzzled about one thing. After she came to the 9 prefectures, she could feel that the 9 prefectures was vast and rich in resources. However, the heaven and earth spiritual qi in the 9 prefectures was not very rich. Although it was much better than the broken Wushuang continent, it was still not enough to give birth to a divine sea realm cultivator. In fact, it would be very difficult for a cultivator to break through to the true lake realm just by relying on the heaven and earth spiritual qi in the 9 prefectures. However, there were many true lake realm cultivators in the 9 prefectures, and there were also many divine sea realm cultivators. The root of this was the unique cultivation method of the 9 prefectures cultivators. When a cultivator was in the spirit stream realm, there was the spirit stream battlefield. Various sects and clans had their own encampments. The encampments were supported by the Tianji pillar, and the heaven and earth spiritual qi was rich enough for the spirit stream realm cultivators to cultivate. In the Cloud River battlefield, there were all kinds of spirit lots and spirit lands, which could also allow cultivators to grow quickly. At the true lake realm, the spirit lots could still be used. Moreover, it was more convenient for cultivators to obtain spirit lots than in the Cloud River battlefield. However, cultivators could not completely rely on spirit lots for their cultivation. In the end, these things still needed to be exchanged with battle merit. Therefore, true lake realm cultivators also had their own unique cultivation method. Before leaving the Jade Blood sect, Shui Yuan had told Lu Yi about this. This method of cultivation didn't consume spirit sticks, nor did it consume battle merits. Instead, it consumed merit points. Regiment in the bamboo house, Lu Yi recalled Shui Yuan's teachings. She raised her hand and tapped on the battlefield imprint. Her mind moved slightly and connected with the Tianji. In the next instant, a message exploded in her mind. The battlefield imprint on the back of her hand heated up slightly, and a rotating vortex suddenly appeared in front of her. As soon as the vortex formed, extremely rich heaven and earth spiritual qi surged out. The heaven and earth spiritual qi spread out in the room as if it had a mind of its own, enveloping Lu Yi, and Hu Po. Only then did it stop spreading out. Lu Yi had already constructed many small spirit-gathering funnels on the surface of his body. Through the small funnels, the heaven and earth spiritual qi flowed into his body and strengthened his foundation. Yi said, Lu Yi, this cultivation method is somewhat similar to using spirit lots. It is indeed similar. When using spirit lots to cultivate, it is also like this. When the spirit lots are crushed, a vortex appears and pure heaven and earth spiritual qi surges out from the vortex. It is unknown where this heaven and earth spiritual chi comes from, but there is clearly a Tianji operating within. In comparison, using spirit lots to attract heaven and earth spiritual chi was much purer. Cultivators almost did not need to refine it. They could directly absorb it and turn it into their own spiritual chi. Therefore, using spirit lots to cultivate was the fastest way for cultivators to increase their cultivation. However, although the heaven and earth spiritual chi in front of them was rich enough, it needed to be refined by cultivators. The efficiency of cultivation was not as good as using spirit lot. Using spirit lots to cultivate consumed spirit lot. Cultivating in front of them consumed merit. Under Lu Ye's observation, his merits were slowly decreasing. This was also the reason why he felt a slight heat on the back of his hand.